Good evening, everybody. Happy, what is it, Tuesday? I guess. All right. Yeah, I've been out. I'm in the vortex of all of these different appearances. Thank you guys for filling in for me earlier. I really appreciate it. But more importantly, we have an amazing show for everybody today with all four of us here at the desk as usual. An annual tradition, our fourth State of the Union that we have covered here at Breaking Points, which I think is pretty incredible. So we've come quite a long way. So what do we have today, Krystal?
Yeah. So it's actually kind of good that we didn't do the show this morning because I feel
it'd be all out of date.
It would be totally out of date because everything has changed since this morning. So we're going to update you on the very latest with regard to the Trump tariffs, which now Howard Lutnick is saying, like, oh, maybe we're going to roll those back tomorrow. Ukraine, we've got big updates. Looks like the minerals deal's back on, guys. Or maybe it's not. Maybe Trump is posturing for something bigger. So we'll give you all of the rundown there and the global reaction and hear from, obviously, Emily and Ryan and give their takes as well. And then we're going to get into just kind of the State of the Union. I guess it's technically not a State of the Union. Joint address to Congress, whatever the hell it is. Yeah, whatever it's actually called. But anyway, we're going to get into where the polls are, going into it, Trump's approval, how people feel about what he's up to, what guests we know are coming, what the Democrats are planning to do, something cringe, I'm sure, and what guests they're bringing, all that good stuff. So
they were planning to wear pink.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Emily said that earlier.
Yeah.
The women will be wearing pink.
Oh, the women will be wearing pink.
They all wore white that one time. That was actually iconic. You have to give it to them. They look good
tonight, and I'm pretty glad now that I did.
Oh no!
That would have been a disaster.
Wow!
Oh my gosh.
I have a souvenir, one of those pussy hats somewhere, so I'll bring that in for you next time.
You turned your head at just the right moment.
I literally pulled it out. I was planning on wearing it, and then I saw the red, and I was like, I'm kind of feeling the red, and dodged a bullet.
If you pick the right seat, you're wearing red, I'm wearing blue, I think it's good.
Yeah.
It's like it works out.
Yeah. Exactly. So, all right, well, let's jump into the latest with regard to tariffs. So we got this Trump announcement that he was going to be going forward with tariffs on Canada and Mexico across the board, more or less 25%. The same thing he had promised before and then backed out of before they actually went into effect. This time, though, they really did go into effect. And so I'm going to show you Trump answering questions and announcing this policy move. And as you're watching, you can notice the stock ticker on the side in real time going red and further and further and further down. Let's take a listen to that.
I'm a huge fan of Ronald Reagan, but he was bad on trade, very bad on trade. He allowed a lot of people, a lot of businesses to be taken. So I say that with due respect because he was so great on other things, but he was bad on trade. We are setting records right now, records like nobody has ever seen before. When you have companies like this coming in and almost 40% of their company in one signature is going to be devoted to what he does, which is one of the most important businesses in the world. That's an unbelievable thing. When Apple now is going to start building all of their plants here.
So that trend line down continued. In fact, the stock market gave up all of the gains that it had made post-Trump's election. We got announcements of retaliatory tariffs from Canada and also actually some additional tariffs from China. The Mexican president also announced she was going to put together a package of retaliatory tariffs. We can put the next piece up on the screen. The stock market, A3, this was just NVIDIA as one example. Unusual Whale saying, this is not a meme coin. This is NVIDIA, the most valuable company in the world. It finished down 8.7%. It lost $250 billion in market cap. Again, today, that trend continued on downward. And then we got this little wrench thrown into things, which is that Howard Lutnick goes on television and says, well, actually, tomorrow, maybe we're going to roll back the tariffs, and we're not actually going to move forward with this policy. This is A9, guys. Go ahead and play that.
He's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because, you know, he's very, very fair and very reasonable. So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff. But I think he's going to figure out, you do more, and I'll meet you in the middle some way. And we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome. The president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Just to clarify, you mentioned.
So that, I don't know exactly what that means, but it's looking like they are backing off of the 25% across the board at the very least. Trump's very fair. He's going to try to work something out. I mean, I'm at a bit of a loss. I have some theories here, but Ryan, I'll just go ahead and kick it. What do you think is going on here?
The problem for me in analyzing this is when he says that he's going to meet, we're going to meet them in the middle.
Yeah.
Where's the middle if you don't know where the end is? Like, I don't actually know what he's
I don't think
trying
they
to
know.
do. Right.
Yeah, I don't think they know where he does.
You can't meet in the middle if you don't know where the other end is
Right.
or the other side.
Because originally, you guys will recall that the language around why we needed these tariffs, both for Mexico and Canada, was because of fentanyl. Got to crack down.
Well, that is the legal
okay,
pretext.
That was
That's,
exactly.
to be
So
fair.
that was
Yeah.
the fake legal pretext
Yes,
reason
that's
because
right.
they need a quote unquote national emergency to have this like unilateral power. But the supposed real reason was for economics, for industrial policy, which, you know, Saagar and I have had this debate many times. I think is insane to put tariffs across the board and not couple it with industrial policy, and by the way, be slashing the government at the same time. But then, so if it's truly about this great industrial renaissance that is going to result from these tariffs, then why now? What are they going to do that's going to cause them to roll back, Emily? So that gets to Ryan's point of like, what is actually the
What do you
goal here?
want?
Like, what is actually your goal here?
I'm open-minded. I want to hear it.
Sure, but what are you doing and what are you trying to accomplish?
And I'm curious what Saagar makes of this too. Part of me, and actually I think Trump has sort of hinted at this before, part of me thinks this really, the point of it is that we're sitting here and have no idea, because that's also what's happening in Mexico and Canada. Like, nobody has any idea what his actual intentions are. So it created this, this, I guess, effect of them saying, okay, well, what can we do? Like, what? Legitimately, what else? And this is what Mexican analysts are saying right now. They're like, okay, so look at the border crossings. Look at the, like, we
like
are,
2%.
it is
Yeah.
so low. What more could he possibly want?
Well, that's so let's separate all the different categories. So fentanyl is a legal pretext. It's not about fentanyl. Never been about fentanyl because it's about fentanyl for China, for Mexico, and for Canada. Okay. So the reason why is you need the national security predicate in order to implement the tariffs that they want to go in. Now, though, and this is the open question both for Mexico and for Canada, is like, so what the hell do you actually want from us?
Right.
Which apparently the White House has not even really given them any indication. Because remember, up until the trade deadline, we had seen some movement on the Mexican side. In particular, they had all of those cartel leaders who were deported to the United States, or I guess extradited to the United States to stand trial. I'm forgetting, I think Miguel Felix Gallardo was sent here. Imported, that's right, to stand trial here in the DEA. I'm actually excited for that trial, just a secondary note, because that guy has a lot of bodies and he can tell us quite a bit about some of the corruption even here in Washington. But beyond
Even
all of it,
here in Washington,
I would never.
Saagar.
I apologize.
Saagar,
I apologize.
Jetty.
I would never. I would never insinuate that the good people of the United States have been on the take from the drug cartels for quite some time. But anyway, going to learn a lot about some people in Spain, some old Mexican presidents, some Americans. But beyond that, really what it is right now is we are seeing that the chaos is the point. Ultimately, he wants to put them on their toes. And at the end of the day, like, as long as the number ends up roughly where it was previously, like, I'm not so sure people will care. So
What do
we
you-
have
what number you
the
mean?
stock market, the S&P. So ultimately, that's what I mean. Ultimately, if you think about what Trump is going to be moved by the most, a race of all S&P 500 gains since he took office, that's bad. Like, you don't want to be in red territory whenever you're the stock market Wall Street president. Now, he's always claimed he didn't care about that. Every president cares about the Dow Jones and the S&P. Nobody wants to have that famous visual like they had in 2008. So right now, the S&P dropped about 1.2% today, just off of Lutnick's comments alone. The S&P futures are already up by like 0.5%.
But Saagar, all the MAGA people told me today it was actually good for the stock market to
Listen,
drop.
you
That
should
this
not,
was all part of some
well,
grand
that-
strategy.
I wouldn't actually say that those were MAGA. I would say that those were some extremely rich, out-of-touch people. who were like
Chamath? Is that-
Chamath. Come on, man. You got to get with it. They are going to roast you for that one, man. They are going to roast
Chamath?
you for that.
How do you say it?
Chamath Palihapitiya.
Palihapitiya.
That's
Okay,
it.
that guy. What
Okay.
do you make of his argument?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah, it's easy to say when you're worth 1.2
let me
billion.
pull it up here. I'll pull it
What did he
up.
refer to people who don't hold stocks as? I believe it was asset light, which is
Yes.
my new favorite way of describing
Asset
poor
light.
people. So poor people we will now be
Asset
rebranding
light?
as asset light Americans.
That's like
It's almost
that's
like a woke
birthing
term.
persons.
I was going to say, it's like birthing persons or people inflicted with
people of
pregnancy
means.
or
People of means
the
was what
unhoused,
it
and
was.
now we have
Okay,
asset
I'm
light.
gonna
Yeah.
read this. This was the COPE about why it was actually good. This was some of the
Yeah.
prominent. I saw a lot of different analyses
Yes.
that
No, this
like
was the top, though.
And I
This
also
is-
saw some 8D chess like, oh well, if he does this, then they're going to buy that, and then it's going to help with $. Like, I saw a lot of that going on. Okay. And that's part of what's funny about Trump, too, is that he made all of his little cronies go out there and defend 25% tariffs and the stock market dropping, only then to turn around and be like, actually,
we should keep in mind, though, they still may not be off. Like, Howard Lutnick could be talking out of his ass. Let's all everybody be very clear about that.
All right, so here's the, what would you call him, Chamath? Here's Chamath weighing in. Number one, Trump is more popular with young people than old people. That's not even true, but whatever. Most young people don't own stocks or homes, aka they are asset light.
Asset light.
Number two, Trump is also more popular amongst working and middle class folks. Most of these folks also asset light. Stands to reason a fall in asset prices, stocks down or home prices down, have very little impact on his core constituents. To that end, I won't be surprised if Trump has little reaction to an equity or home price market correction. Separately, the upside of shrinking these asset prices is that it gives the folks mentioned above a legitimate chance to buy into these markets at lower levels, making equity ownership and or home ownership more possible tangentially. If Trump figures out how to get rents lower, he will unite young people and asset-light working people into a reliable voting bloc for the foreseeable future. He will have given them the trifecta: cheaper stocks, cheaper homes, lower rent. Said differently, don't presume the stock market going up is a useful barometer anymore. In fact, it going down may be a better signal for his popularity. Now, let me say, there are some parts of that I'm actually sympathetic to, because it is true. Like the stock market
asset inflation
as a metric, and it has been propped. I mean, there's a massive everything bubble in the stock market. It is the way that Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk have become wildly rich. It is disconnected from the lives of ordinary people. However, if you're going to actually try to rebalance things, then, you know, he says like, oh, if he could get rents down, if he could get home prices down, if he could do all these things, well, there is no corresponding policy to do any of that. So you can't just crash the stock market and think that that's going to somehow fix your problems here.
Well, I think I'm not even going to try to like rationally explain it. The point behind it is what he's saying is that a recession and or a decline in asset prices would reduce demand. True, right? I mean, empirically, that is true. It's not a good way to reduce demand. Actually, that's the Federal Reserve's plan, right? They're like, look, let's smash the economy and crush consumer spending and crush lending and all of that and shrink as much economic activity as possible so we all spend less, and that way the prices will go down. It's a very efficient way for prices to go down. It's an extremely painful way for prices to go down. So one of the reasons why I think that Trump is so all over the place is, one, I think he enjoys the show more than anything. But two is he is very motivated also by probably these trial balloons of looking at the stock market and then reacting as such and basically just making policy on the fly. This is apparently what's maddening in for the Canadian leaders. They're like, we literally don't know what you want from us. Same from the Mexicans. Trump is a huge believer in the madman theory. I'm only explaining this. I am not justifying it, because part of the problem is that right now, as we've seen this with Doge, the tremendous uncertainty that a lot of people have in their lives from the stock market or from an overall recession, employment data, et cetera, that's not something to be messed with, because that's your retirement. You know, people who are elderly and others rely on this to be able to, if you're 74, you're making your mandatory withdrawal, whatever, now all of a sudden the principal is down from where it was previously. Sure, the markets are fine right now, but the point is that a 25% tariff actually did go into place. It's going to cause some serious damage. So we actually have
not just for the, I mean, the thing is, like, tariffs are regressive. When you spike the price of...
You mean inflation?
Tariffs.
Oh, tariffs are regressive in terms of poor people. Yeah.
I mean, inflation is as well, but these things go together. It's a problem for asset-light individuals.
People's inflicted with assets.
Persons of light assets. Because if you are, spiking the price of bananas and avocados and like things that ordinary people have to buy because they have less income, it makes up a larger percent of their income, and so it's regressive. So I think that's that's important to keep in mind in terms of the overall thrust here. And of course, there was a real sentiment around inflation and desire to get prices under control. This cuts directly against that if he goes forward with the tariffs. I mean, I have to tell you, I am starting to take more seriously some of the conspiracies about like, oh, they're doing these little mini flash crashes so that people are on the inside can, buy the dip and profit when Trump comes out and goes like, psych, actually, we're not doing the tariffs right now. Because otherwise, I'm sorry, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, if you actually believe, and again, I don't think that this is true or real, but if you actually believe tariffs are the most beautiful thing in the world, and this is how we're going to reindustrialize, and this is going to be great for America, and yes, it's short-term pain, but it's going to be worth it in the long term, then you do the tariffs. And if you don't believe that, then you don't do the tariffs. So like, and as a negotiating tactic, to Ryan's point, how is it a negotiating tactic if your negotiating partners don't even know what you want out of the negotiation because it's so unclear what this strategy is driving towards? So, you know, we can put up some of the polling here in a moment, but in terms of public opinion too, I think there is a theoretical argument that could be made to the American people. And again, I'm not anti-tariff, but they have to make sense. And I think most Americans are actually like that.
Yes, that's true.
Like, if you ask people, if you say we're gonna put tariffs on China because we're gonna bring back, you know, all of these factory jobs that have gone overseas, and yes, it's gonna raise the prices on these certain goods for some time, but it's gonna be worth it.
Yeah.
I actually think a lot of people would be in it for that.
American Compass has done polling on that.
And
Yes.
the first term, a lot of the tariffs did
correct.
prove out in that direction.
Now, I will say that at this point in time, the economy is very different from how it was during the first term, because inflation is a much higher concern and priority for Americans than it was at that time. But still, I think there is a story you could tell that would make sense to people. But this is like, even, you know, economic people who study this are like, I really don't even know what you're trying to accomplish here. So there's no story around it. It just seems capricious and designed to cause chaos and pain for a lot of people, and, you know, potentially inflationary if they were to actually go through with it.
Yeah, I was looking at some of the data. This is part of the problem too with the madman strategy. Is like the first time I was like, yeah, great. You know, I support tariffs, like you're saying. We've had our disagreement or whatever across the board or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, this is good. The UAW actually came out today in support of the tariffs. They're like, good, as long as it leads to American manufacturing, right? And so that's the point. Is it has to be as part of a broader plan.
Yes.
But when it's not part of a broader plan and it's simply rooted in, well, part of the problem too is they can't actually say what they're doing, because then it would violate the legal pretext
I
for
don't think
using.
care about that, honestly, but whatever.
Maybe, but like it would at least give the whatever trade association some reason to be able to sue in federal court and cause even more problems or whatever. My only point is, it is a difficult position that they painted themselves into, but I'm starting to think of this in the same way with Doge or with all of this, where when you're doing these things slapshot, whenever you are losing trust as if there is some grand plan behind that, and it starts to feel like you're screwing with my life, that's when people get mad. Now, I still believe America will give their president a decent enough long run. Biden, I mean, we gave the guy 9 months if you look at his overall approval rating. That's actually a long time if you consider how crazy that time was. I don't think it'll be that long this time. I think he's got maybe 3. Part of the problem is it's March 4th, so we are more than a month into the first term. We're almost nearing the halfway mark of the first 100 days. And so, you know, as I always say, the first 100 days, the most important part of any American presidency. What will America remember, at least from the first 50 days of Donald Trump's second term? It's going to be Doge, Elon, and it's going to be these tariffs. Like, yes, in retrospectively, the AI story, et cetera, and all that, the macro trends will be written on top of that. But in terms of what he directly has done, and unfortunately for him, the American people, at the very least from what we can see from the polling and others, they're not receiving the message that he wants them to. And part of it is because it's on and it's off. And it's like, what is going on here? And it feels as if you're toying with people's lives, which I think is very, very dangerous territory.
Yeah.
No, I agree with all of that. And the only other thing I wanted to add was that I think part of the problem here is that, he has this manufacturing goal, and then he has the immigration goal. And he often, like, the immigration goal is, he takes it seriously, but he often
Not
does.
that seriously if you look at the numbers.
Well,
I mean,
to your point, he uses it as a pretext for manufacturing questions, and that's confusing in a way that actually undermines what he's trying to do with Claudia Sheinbaum and Trudeau, Mexico and Canada, in that they're like, Sheinbaum's like, well, I have done all of these things on immigration. Like, have you seen the border crossings? Have you seen the raids? Have you seen all of this? And what he always really cared about most was manufacturing.
Right.
And so I think that complicates his ability to talk about what his goal actually is. Part of that is he wants them to not know what his goal actually is, but at the same time, at what point does Sheinbaum decide to stop doing immigration enforcement? Because she's like, well, I'm getting tariffed either way.
I don't think that will happen.
She's like, I'm getting
Let's also
tariffed
not
either
forget,
way.
at the same time, these people, 80% of their exports are to the United States. Okay, it's only 13%.
Well,
or
yeah, but if it's
over here.
if it's 25% either way.
No, I'm saying
Then
though
why
that
would
they are
you-
disproportionately way more affected
Yeah, no,
by
I know.
tariffs than we are. Their economy will crash in a month.
Yeah,
Like
but
absolute
Emily's
devastation.
right. At a certain point,
Like-
you go like, there's nothing I can do to appease this person, so
Right.
we just have to like
Right.
deal with it and respond the best that we can. And Claudia Sheinbaum has what 85% approval rating, higher than AMLO, so she does have some political capital as well with her people.
But over the years, the thing that people have said about Trump, and those people include us sometimes, is that he really had his finger on the pulse of people's anger, and he came up with things that he was going to do to respond to that anger. One of them was like tariffs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't fleshed out, but it was a thing that he would mention, and it stood in for his recognition of your pain and the fact that you don't like the last 40 years of American industrial policy. You don't like that, we're not what we used to be, and he understands that, and he's going to do something about it. And the thing he's going to, and then when you're like, well, what are you going to do about it? He says, I'm going to do tariffs, and then he moves on, and that worked in the campaign. Now he has to govern. And so he hasn't really fleshed out exactly how these tariffs are going to actually do the thing he's saying. But he still does them, and maybe that'll be a thing that people remember the 100 days. Oh, yeah, he did tariffs. Like, he did the tariffs.
That's why I'm like, I don't yet know.
And if he gets rid of them, there's not pain
That's what I was
from
gonna
them,
say.
but he at least tried something.
I think that genuinely may be part of the story.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, let's say, here's another grand plan. Let's say you're a Republican, you want to win the midterms. Well, what do? You make sure that the economy has a nice, let's say 10% correction, then you have a nice 15% swing.
Things are getting better.
Right up until, things are getting better. America's back. We're working. It's like, okay.
Golden age.
I wouldn't recommend it,
We
but
cleaned up our mess.
it'll work.
It won't work though, because we already see we've already been to this rodeo. He already threatened the tariffs, and the markets did their thing, it crashed. Oh my God, what's going to happen? And then reversed course last time before they were even implemented. And what are we seeing? We're seeing consumer spending drop for the largest amount in years. We're seeing consumer sentiment fall off a cliff month after month. We see now the Atlanta Fed out with a new GDP prediction that
was
is
a disaster.
quite dire, that went from like, oh, we're going to see modest growth to we're going to see a giant contraction and
saw that.
possibly a recession. You have housing market is still completely paralyzed. Egg prices and other prices are high. There is no plan on the horizon to deal with prices at all. In fact, everything is cutting in the opposite direction. So, if the flash crash and then, oh, we're back and everything's great, political strategy was going to work. We've already seen it not work. And we've already seen it really do some, I think, significant harm to the economy, too, because people do feel like that and the DOGE cuts and, we're seeing mass firings and we're seeing impacts in communities in terms of what those cuts mean and impact on people's lives, not just here in D.C. All of that adds up to people feeling very wary.
One other data point, healthcare is 18% of GDP.
Yeah.
And on Friday, we'll get the jobs report, and we'll see. Hospitals are freezing hiring or laying people off. Doctors' offices, universities, because
Doesn't
of
it lag
NIH
by
cuts.
30 days, though? I don't know if it's that.
Right, we'll see.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll see. It's not totally clear what we're going to see. But January is when the freezes started, and so yeah, we'll see what we get on Friday, and then we'll see what we get on the Friday after that. But a fifth of the economy basically just waiting to see what happens
Yeah.
is a lot.
Well, actually, it's more if you include Krystal's point about consumers, because 70% of the overall economy is consumer spending. We have some of the polling we've been teasing. Can we put A8 there up on the screen? This is a very interesting article, actually, because they look specifically at how Americans feel about tariffs.
A8.
A8. This is the New York Times polling tear sheet on this. And exactly as to your point, is share Americans in favor of tariffs can go anywhere from 56% to 29%. And it's really more about what the tariffs are about. When a survey question defines tariffs as taxes on imports, fewer people say that they support them. When a survey question calls out specific countries like China, then it has a lot more support. Now, citing potential upsides or downsides can also dramatically alter support. Very high support for bringing back American jobs. Very low support even if prices increase. I mean, and I think I've always admitted this, price increase, it's not popular. Americans are the most consumerist country literally in the entire world. 70% of our economy is based on consumerism. People are incredibly price sensitive. You can't blame them after 4 years of inflation. It's been a disaster. You have food prices and all that up 20%. And I do think that the longer those eggs, and eggs in particular and grocery prices remain high, it's going to be the same political cancer that it was for Joe Biden. Now, to the runway point, we'll talk about this before the speech comes, he's still like, half. Like, people are there. Like, most people are not like us, not tuned into the news every single day. But the goodwill, there's a bank that every American president has. What you want to do is you want to fill it all up over the 100 days and then, dramatically kind of scale back from it as you deal with reality and all of that. We can call that the Joe Biden. But, Trump is using a lot of this through the shock and awe strategy and all of that right now. There's a bigger question that I think about sometimes. Does he care at all? Like, I honestly,
wonder that too.
I really wonder, because I'm like, does he really care? Because Trump is the guy who gets to do whatever he wants, basically with no consequence. He does not care about the Republican Party.
And with years of planning, too.
With years of planning, these are his real ideas. And he's on the record, he doesn't care about J.D. Vance. He already said literally no whenever Trump, if J.D. is his MAGA, he could care less about J.D.'s political career or about the Republican, House and the Senate, right? The last 2 years of your presidency, you barely do anything anyway. So maybe this is just what he wants to do. It's like a kid in a candy store or whatever. And in a sense, like, look, the one thing we can say is nobody was not warned about these tariffs.
Correct.
He was extremely serious.
But a lot of people didn't take it seriously.
Well, the Wall Street people didn't.
Wall Street people. I mean, Jeff
Mexico and
Stein.
Canada.
Jeff Stein was out there like, guys, no. He talks about this all the time. Washington.
He says the most beautiful word in the dictionary.
He talks about this a lot. I think you should take it seriously. And people, nah, he's not gonna. That would be crazy to do that. And it's like, well, yeah, it would be, and he still might do it. There's a couple more points that I want to make, and then we should probably move on to Ukraine because there's a hell of a lot to talk about there too as well. But number one of my theories was, I think Trump has a visceral hatred of liberal Democrat leaders, like people like Justin Trudeau as one example, or Emmanuel Macron. Like, he hates them, and he feels like they look down at him. I mean, it's the same kind of chip.
AMLO.
He did like AMLO. Same kind of chip on his shoulder about those, who he considers to look down their nose at him, the way that he was looked down on as, this developer from the outer boroughs, whatever. I think that plays into some of his emotion, and I do think that that international relations, a lot of this for him is personal. The irony of that is that no one has done more to rescue the Liberal Party in Canada than Donald Trump. Yes. They were on track. I mean, Trudeau had to resign, right? He's still there because they have to have elections or whatever, but he had to resign because he was so tremendously unpopular. If you look at the polling graph, like, the first poll just came out now that has the Liberals beating the Conservatives, all because of the tariff threat, and the way Conservatives there are kind of like, Trump's cool and whatever.
Now he's
and
nudging,
the Liberals are actually standing up to him.
But he's
Canadian
also
nationalism has literally never been higher, which is hilarious.
It's unfortunate, but he's nudging the Conservatives also closer to the neoliberal center. Like,
that's right.
Other thing.
Pierre, how do you pronounce the guy's name?
Poilievre.
PP, we'll call him that.
I had a French professor teach me this.
Okay, all right, thank you. Whatever your French-Canadian bullshit pronunciation is. Mr. Pierre has found himself in a very difficult position because he was an icon. Remember, even the American right was building up. The famous video of him with the apple. People love that, right?
He's such a Trump Me Too. He did a press conference saying that Canada needed to cut all foreign aid.
Yeah, that's right. He's like, Canada needs to cut all foreign aid. And the Canadians, like,
Canadian
aid. Yeah, exactly. Like, what foreign aid? Shut up, dude. Yeah, it's like, whatever. That's a whole other story.
The other point I wanted to make about tariffs is like I said before, like, I'm not anti-tariff. I supported the China tariffs in Trump's first term. In retrospect, I'm not sure I would, because he didn't pair them with an infrastructure policy or any industrial policy. They didn't really have that much impact. But they did
bringing some stuff back.
They didn't. But anyway, they did open the door.
COVID complicates a lot.
They did open the door for that to be a policy that then Biden pursues, and Biden did actually a much better job with it and did pair it with some industrial policy, and it did start to bring jobs back, and manufacturing has ticked up significantly. But the point is that you have to not just do, first of all, blanket across the board tariffs, I think, again, are insane. If you have a specific industry you want to target, okay, that makes sense. But you have to also pair it with government investment and with industrial policy. And so to have a massive tariff regime at the same time that you are ripping apart the government and actually undoing the industrial policy that was done in the last administration, specifically undercutting the CHIPS Act, this makes I don't think there is any reasonable overall economic argument that you could make. And maybe there will be certain industries that you could imagine benefit, the car industry or something. But even that,
Honda in Indiana.
I think you would have to pair it with, industrial policy and investment to really be able to see those gains. Otherwise, automakers will just be like, see ya, I'm out of here, rather than going back and forth across the border.
Yeah, okay. That's not going to happen. Ford or GM or any of these other places. Like, where are they going to sell it to? Nobody else will buy their shit boxes. But beyond that, the point is
I have a
that...
Ford, and I actually have two Fords, and I
you
like
have
both of them quite a
Krystal.
lot.
He's such a Tesla.
I'm just saying, if you look at overall consumer satisfaction, the numbers speak for themselves. But my point being on the tariffs, first of all,
F-150 is the
I
most
think...
popular vehicle in America.
Yeah, and that's a
Saagar.
tragedy if you look at the car loans that most people
I'm
have.
taking your water.
I saw today, did you guys see the Maria Bartiromo clip? Where she
Yes.
said, a Dodge is going to go from $80,000 to $100,000. I go, what kind of an idiot is spending $80,000 on a Dodge? No. I know. That's the problem. So that's a
is an
separate
insane-
personal finance with Saagar.
Car
We'll leave that
YouTube,
course.
Yeah,
for
Car
later.
YouTube has some wild comment sections.
It's unbelievable. It's genuinely unbelievable.
Yeah.
Last word on the tariffs is I don't think it's necessarily fair to judge the tariffs from 2018 onwards because of the COVID crisis that happened. And we ended up net importing massive amounts from them. That is, by the way, a huge thing that I've always had a beef with Jared Kushner and them is that they never did anything to try and rebalance during the last 2020 period. And we actually ended up increasing our overall trade deficit with China. So it's not really, we didn't have enough actual data. We only had 18 months or so for that to happen. I don't necessarily disagree. But I would say top line for this, the point has to be you have to have a strategy. You have to have a narrative. It has to be part of a plan. People need to feel, I mean, if you think about the core Trump vote, a lot of it, remember, it was like, I'd rather have those mean tweets right now. But what that was about stability because they felt like the Biden years were ultimately chaotic.
Yeah.
Now, recreating chaos is the absolute easiest way to make sure that your political fortunes begin to sink. And we're going to return to some of that polling. So,
One other
last
quick point on that.
Ukraine.
I think the U.S., with its hyper partisanship, probably isn't equipped to take on China when it comes to like a trade war. Like, look what happened.
Are you speaking in favor of one-party rule, like the Chinese Communist Party?
If you're, I mean,
it has its benefits.
If you're gonna do 15-year strategy, it helps to be able to like set the strategy.
15 years short
And
for them,
keep
right?
it.
They have 50 years.
And 50-year strategy. My colleague Jessica Burbank lives in Iowa. She talks about how the retaliatory tariffs on soybeans that China sicked on us sent China looking for soybeans down to Brazil. And so now China is like Brazil's #1 customer, their #1 trading partner. And the soybean farmers in the U.S. have just never recovered because China's just buying it from Brazil.
We did have a tariff repayment plan under Trump that I remember from last time.
But it doesn't help the soy farmers who are now like getting like 50% less for their soybeans than they were in like 2018 because China's like, actually, you know what? It's strategically wiser for us to just go to Brazil. But we can't make those decisions because every 2 years we got new people coming in.
So you're speaking for one-party rule.
One party,
All right, I
one
like
party
it.
rule.
All right, let's
Elections
decide.
within the Central Committee.
How about this? Let's remove the 22nd Amendment, and Obama and Trump can go up against each other.
It's what America
Obama
wants.
versus Trump, 2020.
America.
That's what
Lifetime
American
appointment.
What America wants, and it will be the
Whoever
last.
wins,
And
that's it.
actually, unlike the last, this one actually will be the most important in American history because that's
opt
it.
in for a different candidate than
well,
Obama
who else
because
would
I'm
you
not
pick?
feeling a lot of
Yeah.
interest in
He
that
could run in a
particular.
primary, but he would win.
Yeah, he would win.
Would
I mean,
win.
come
What's
on.
the point?
He would
We
win.
all know if the amendment was
I'm
removed
just saying, I'm not
yesterday,
backing this
he's
plan
going all
under
in.
those parameters.
Well, you get what you deserve, in the words of the Joker. All right, let's get to the Ukraine.
Getting it.
You
shall
had
we?
that
Getting
at
it
the tip of your tongue.
I say it all the time, as the crew knows here. One of my favorite sayings. All right, let's go over to Ukraine. There's been some major developments here. Let's go ahead and put the Reuters tear sheet up, guys, please. This was leaking earlier today, right before the State of the Union / address to the nation. U.S. and Ukraine now plan to sign minerals deal, sources say. This was after President Zelensky issued an apology to Donald Trump over the way that the Oval Office meeting went. Let's go ahead and put B3, please, up on the screen from Vladimir Zelensky. He says, I would like to reiterate Ukraine's commitment to peace. I'll get down to the important point. Our meeting in Washington at the White House on Friday did not go the way that it was supposed to be. It is regrettable that it happened this way. It is time to make things right. We would like for future cooperation and communication to be constructive. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time and in any convenient format. We see this agreement as a step forward towards greater security and solid security guarantees. There are still open questions about this. It is not 100% confirmed from the White House that they will be announcing the minerals deal, so everybody do keep that in mind, and things are still a little bit fluid. It did come after the United States paused all military aid to Ukraine earlier yesterday. I don't think it's an accident that literally, within 24 hours of that, he refused to apologize. They pause all the aid. He apologizes miraculously. And now we're doing this Ukraine minerals deal, it appears.
Well, and we could potentially expect to hear an announcement on this during
We could,
the State
yeah.
of the Union
One of the
address.
things people who are watching right now, guys, the White House is leaking that there's going to be something about, foreign policy / peace announcement. It would not be a surprise that he has asked Ukraine and all of them not to announce it up until the State of the Union, that he could be the person, have there be like a mini victory for him. It's like you have the spat and you pause the aid and you get the overall minerals deal. I will tell you, I've come full circle on this minerals deal and I'm just completely against it now, because originally I was like, okay, like maybe we can actually get something out of this and like some of this other money. But the problem is, it's now clear to me from Zelensky and from all the Europeans is that they're desperate for this minerals deal to be signed, because what they want is more, not only entanglement between the United States and Ukraine, but they take those security guarantees, even as flimsy as they are inside the agreement, as serious. So I'm like, okay, wait, hold on a second. Like, what are we actually doing here? And some of the things, something I did in my reaction video, which I was thinking about that Michael Tracy pointed out, is that the minerals deal was actually a pretext to keep all the weapons continuing to flow to Ukraine. So if the minerals deal is security guarantees, more weapons to Ukraine and funding the war and more U.S. embroilment, I'm like, no. Let's go back to just pausing the aid. Yeah, exactly. Bring Bannon back. Let's just pause all the aid, sign a damn ceasefire, and we can all go home. And everybody else can relax from this. So
And,
yeah,
and
that's
Putin can have Western Europe.
Oh, right. I apologize. Yeah, we needed one of those takes here.
Yes.
So don't get mad at me, but I do think that the whole thing was planned, and this is what
There is no evidence of that literally in all of the video.
This is what I would
for anyone
predict.
who watched
Don't
it.
get mad at me.
I prefaced it with "Don't get mad at me," so you're not allowed to get mad.
That was smile. I had a smile. That
Listen,
wasn't
I'm
mad.
sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think that JD Vance does anything without Donald Trump giving him license to do it. But we don't have to argue about that right now. I know you disagree. I will say that I predicted that at the end of the day, things would not really change and they'd end up in this freaking minerals deal. And the point of what I think was a show was to, number one, posture. So Trump can posture like, oh, I pushed him around and I got a better deal, and the whole like art of the deal, like appearance of that. And also because you did have a possibility that there were more people in the MAGA base who felt like Steve Bannon did, because Steve Bannon and you are correct that this deal it's not about us getting rare minerals and benefiting the American public. No. It's about Ronald Lauder, a billionaire who proposed this deal and has direct financial interests in Ukraine, being able to exploit the country, and a bunch of other billionaires and BlackRock and who knows who's going to get their mitts into that.
BlackRock just got Panama, by the way.
They just got Panama.
Still better than China.
But,
Come on,
right,
let's admit it.
But here's the deal. So they get to, exploit the country and do their little like economic colonialism situation, and the U.S. military has to protect it and backstop it. Like that's what the deal is. And there was a chance that more people in the MAGA base who genuinely want to be just out of Ukraine and don't like Zelensky and all this, has a lot of emotions around it at this point, would have come to object to that. And I think Trump, by having this, what I think was a show in the Oval Office, gets to get a lot of applause from his base and make them feel like he put Zelensky in his place, and this deal is really great for us, and it's really America first. That's my theory. That's what I predicted when you and I were talking, and so it does not surprise me in the least that we are back to okay, they're probably doing the rare earth minerals deal situation.
I see that. I still think, from my perspective, what I saw with Zelensky, and Christopher Caldwell floated this theory in Compact, that he also wanted to spin this as a sort of PR effort because he knew he was always going to end up being forced to take the minerals deal. So he was able, right, yeah, so he was able to come in, and what happened for him is it went wrong. It actually put J.D. Vance and Donald Trump over the top and ended up exploding, but he wanted to look really tough in that meeting, so it looked like he was being forced.
Well, I do think it ultimately
this
served
was
his
politically
political interest.
benefit for Trump? I don't think that. I've never seen liberals more like frothing at the mouth and pro-Ukraine.
Oh, but
than
I
ever
mean, but the
before.
base loved it.
Yeah, but like,
It
you
looks
know,
really good
it's
now.
still like I don't know about that.
You don't think it was politically good for him?
I think it's been
base?
politically good for with the base, but I mean, I've literally never seen more like Michael McCall like ready to go to war with Russia than ever
He would
before. Like, it's insane out there, everybody. Like, people are ready to literally storm the Donbass
He likes
on
to
behalf of
posture as the tough guy, though, and
yeah, but-
so he likes to play that part.
But okay, wait,
and
why
that's how I
can't
see
we
it.
also option C? Zelensky is an emotionally incontinent idiot who literally explodes after 40 minutes and can't even sit there with a smile on his face and get this beautiful deal, apparently, for the minerals deal, which leads
He's still
to a
getting the
blow
deal.
up in the Oval
He's still
Office.
getting his deal.
Okay, but he looks like a fucking moron,
No,
which
but
is
now
literally
to his people, he now looks like he stood up to Trump. And no, but
Stood
this
up
is your
to
point.
Trump? It's
This
like-
is your point about how it sent them it sent them crazy, frothing at the mouth. Zelensky did that, and he got all of the public relations admiration for doing that.
I'm jujitsuing it the other way. I think Zelensky has been huffing European glue over in
Of course he
UK
has.
and France,
Oh,
telling them,
yeah.
oh, we're gonna protect you, and all these idiot liberals here in
Yeah,
Washington
Chris
are like,
Murphy.
no, you are the 51st state of the United States. Yeah, like Chris Murphy and all this, like, how dare you? It's like Zelensky's like a little baby in their eyes. It's like, how dare anybody speak to him this way in the Oval Office? It's like, what is this guy? The most defenseless, like a little princeling who's not being allowed to be spoken to? It's
Here's the thing,
ludicrous.
Though. Here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's like this is why, even if you don't think it was
Yeah.
planned, as I do, but even if you don't think that, this is why it's all so fake, because Zelensky is our creation. Like, both through us backing a coup d'etat in Ukraine and
Well, are you using the
toppling
royal
their-
us or like in
I'm
terms
talking
of
about the U.S.
Yeah, but it's different. We
I'm
have a
ta-
different administration.
Yeah,
now.
but
We had
Trump
a
was part
change
of
in our
this too. He was
government.
bragging about he was shipping javelins too. You know, he had a hawkish approach.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the first term, but maybe it was because he was worried about Russiagate and the way that. But whatever, he did what he did, and he was in there bragging about how he was so much more hawkish vis-a-vis Russia than Obama was. Obama was just sending sheets. I was sending javelin. So the other thing is, when you are president of a country, you don't just get to pretend that all the decisions that were made before by other presidents had nothing to do with you. Like, our country is still responsible for laying the groundwork for this situation. Now, Russia, obviously, Putin did an illegal invasion. They bear responsibility for that. This is not letting them off the hook. But as we all know here, we helped to lay the groundwork and set the preconditions. Zelensky is on our team. He is our we're using him in this proxy war. And so
Which is why he should be grateful.
Yeah, that's why
the
he should be
whole
grateful.
show around this being some divide between us and like we're on opposite sides is just it's the upside down.
Okay,
it's
but-
just insane to me that that this is the spectacle that they want to create. And then also I do object to the turning it on its head and making it like Russia's the good guys and the Ukrainians are the bad guys. He said Zelensky's a dictator and won't say it about Putin.
Because Putin
he
is
says
a
that it's their
nuclear
fault
armed
that they got invaded.
So this is-
and
this
like
is-
I have to
Putin went through some really
stand
hard
up
times with Trump.
With Trump, they went through some hard times together.
But
I
here's
mean,
my-
I just have facts and reality have to also
because
matter, and
this
it
is-
just drives me insane.
This is what I've learned about liberals. They care more about rhetoric and UN resolution
No.
votes and speaking correctly.
No,
We have to correctly
Saagar,
identify dictators.
I would like there to
instead of
be-
there being peace.
I want this war to
It's
be
like-
over. I do not want us to be signing some stupid rare earth minerals
Sure.
exploitation agreement that's going to benefit a bunch of billionaires and obligate us to endless situations in Ukraine. So that's why I think, again, I think it was a setup, but the whole thing, the version of reality that it attempted to present is a fake one. That's my sort of bottom line.
I think that's fair, but I think that bringing it back to the look. First of all, let's just all not forget who the two choices in the election were. One actually literally wanted to give Ukraine NATO membership and continue the war going.
Fine,
no, but it is
that
important.
doesn't mean that we never get to criticize Trump for what he's doing because Kamala had a bad policy too.
Yes or no? Is this not the liberal wet fever dream of like literally of how they want the United States to talk to Bibi? So it's like let's not all pretend like everybody's like all for decorum in the White House. Like if this was happening with Biden and Bibi, they'd be doing backflips. I'd be happy too. I want to see anybody dressed down who's an overall. You have no cards. No cards, baby. Don't tell what's going to happen here. And you know what? He would be right to speak that way to Bibi. It's shameful he doesn't speak that way to Bibi. We should be speaking this way to all vassal states who are causing problems for us. And is not Israel just as much a creation of the United States?
I would love to see Israel dressed down like that. What would be preposterous is if you had a Trump or a Biden or any other American president pretending like they have nothing to do with what's going on in Gaza and how dare you. And that is the reality that Trump is trying to present at this point. But, the bottom line is we're back to square one. The rare earths minerals deal is probably on. That's probably the direction we're heading in. And that's very consistent with, his overall foreign policy thrust, whether it is BlackRock buying the Panama Canal situation, whether it's we're going to take Greenland and get whatever resources there are to benefit, and there are a bunch of billionaires chomping at the bit there as well. Like, it's just naked sort of return to imperialism, but with the added spin of it. It's really not even a pretense of it's our national interest. It's the interest of these particular set of oligarchs who have different, goals and things that they want. Assets that they want to gobble up.
That's with the most cynical interpretation. But at the very least, look, I understand that is what news article or whatever said about Mr. Lauder, but there's no evidence necessarily that. And I'm not even pro minerals deal. I'm just saying, like, if you're able to sell this as we're actually getting some return on investment from this, I actually think that would be quite popular. Now, I'm still saying I'm against it because it's clear to me now the Europeans and the Ukrainians view this as a pretext to rope the United States into major security guarantees. So when I see that, I'm like, okay, well, hold on a second. What was supposed to be like some sort of reimbursement or at very least ROI has now turned into some backdoor scheme to basically keep the U.S. here on the hook now for decades, which is the exact opposite of what we want. I'm sorry, go ahead, Emma.
Well, no, as I say, we've actually learned more about how Donald Trump is going to address this because the White House just released some excerpts of the speech ahead of time. So we have this. He's going to say, quote, "I am also working tirelessly to end the savage conflict in Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians and Russians have been needlessly killed or wounded in this horrific and brutal conflict with no end in sight. The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense. Meanwhile, Europe has sadly spent more money buying Russian oil and gas than they have spent on defending Ukraine by far, and Biden has authorized more money in this fight than Europe has spent." So that's an excerpt. That's not everything he's going to say about Ukraine in all likelihood, but that is something we know that is at least in his script as he goes up to the podium.
It's a little generic. There's no policy there per se.
As far as we know.
No.
Yeah. We'll see.
Generic, and also interesting that the interesting thing there, I would say, is he's still invoking Biden. It's not surprising at all, but in a State of the Union speech, this isn't going to be Trump 2.0.
One little thing that I haven't seen talked about much is that Zelensky still is mostly surrounded by Democratic-leaning advisors.
Yeah.
And a source of mine who goes to Ukraine a lot was pointing out that if he had switched when there was an election and they switched parties, he would have had people who advised him how to handle Trump. It's not difficult. Like, everybody knows how you handle Trump. You just slobber all over him throughout the entire meeting.
Or you keep your mouth shut, like the King of Jordan.
But Lindsey Graham said he advised.
If you don't have anything nice to say, you don't say anything
Shut
at
up,
all.
and then release a statement afterwards and saying, I disagree with the president.
But
and guess
Lindsey
what?
Graham
Nothing
advised
happens.
him. Lindsey Graham said he advised Zelensky to play nice with Trump and to just be grateful.
His Democratic advisors clearly were more interested in having a little bit of
wear
a
your
confrontation.
costume, have your confrontation.
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah,
And it
got your military aid paused.
Again, I really do think that this was a setup. I really think that,
again,
they were trying to bait him. I watched the video.
Literally no evidence.
They tried to bait him the whole time. JD Vance jumps in on something that was not like a particularly provocative point. I don't think that he does this without the permission of Donald Trump and the encouragement of Donald Trump. But putting that aside, Zelensky seemed very clever initially because he immediately, once Trump gets elected, even before Trump gets elected, starts talking to him about, hey, you know, we've got this rare earth state, like turning immediately from the language
might not be
of
true, basically.
democracy and human rights and the things that appealed to a Joe Biden and the NATO line, whatever, appealed to a Joe Biden, to, hey, there's a deal that we can cut here. So he's demonstrated a lot of savviness in other ways. So I'm not sure I'm buying that about his Democratic aligned advisors being so
but what's the first?
disconnected from
Okay,
Trump.
what kicks off the disagreement?
It's not hard to understand Trump,
What
right?
kicks off the disagreement in the Oval is like, but soon your war will come ocean here, and you're like, what? That's what set Trump off.
That's not what set JD Vance off.
No, I'm
was
talking about
him-
Trump.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that was after the conflict had already kicked off,
Yes.
which JD Vance is the one who instigates. And Zelensky had made a point that is not unreasonable of like, hey, you know, this guy's not really all that reliable. True. Of course, we're not all that reliable either. Also true. But, you know, it seemed very much to be like they were waiting for an excuse to pounce, and he gave it to him there. And
Zelensky disrespected
Zelensky-
the president, the vice president,
my
first
God.
of all, by calling him. I'm just saying, look, if you believe in diplomatic protocol, which JD was doing, he said, Mr. President, he's calling him JD. You're not supposed to do that. He brings up this point about ceasefire. JD gets annoyed because it's clear that this guy is counter-signaling. Then he gets mad at what specifically did Zelensky get mad at? Whenever he talked about the forced conscription, how many times have we covered that here on the show, including literally like mentally retarded people, segues there from to, and soon this will come your ocean here, and that's what set Trump's off.
Well, he also accused Trump of spreading Russian propaganda.
Yeah, and so in front of the
press.
TikTok. Look, we don't have time to go through this whole thing. The TikTok of this, there is not one scrap of evidence that this was planned.
It starts with JD Vance attacking him. That's where
because he
it
was
starts.
being
Now,
counter to
here's
peace
what is
and what they were going to
Here's
meet
what is
for.
possible is that they understand his personality and that he is a little bit of a belligerent person, and so they were trying to goad him into making some sort of something that they could use as a justification.
Well, then he's an
for this
idiot. So,
provocation
you
the
know,
whole time.
congratulations
But
to Ukraine because he can't even fix a mistake.
absolutely think this was a setup with the goal of ultimately trying to have Trump appear like he's the tough guy and he's putting Zelensky in his place and he's securing this amazing deal and placating a base that there was danger of them saying like, hold on a second, does this mean we're going to be entwined in Ukraine like literally forever so that these billionaires can just like exploit the country? And, you know, he accomplished those goals. So, but to Emily's point, though, it didn't turn out bad for Zelensky either because he's still getting his deal and his popularity in the country is up because he was seen as being tough.
And Europe is committing more money.
Europe is committing more money. So win-wins all around.
In that way, maybe Trump won.
Yeah.
Trump convinced these idiots to actually spend 3.5% on GDP on their defense and actually not be as reliant on us, and maybe they'll take responsibility for the situation. So I guess in that way, you know, it's probably a good thing. So we've only got, 8 minutes here technically?
Yeah, let's
What
go
is the
ahead and-
TikTok on Trump? Do we know where he is? Has he left the White House?
Go ahead and take a look. And go ahead and put the
We probably have
C1.
25 minutes before he
Most
speaks.
likely. I just want to be
Probably,
safe. You
Put
never know.
C1 up on the screen and we can talk about like where he is going into this. So this is net approval rating for, you know, presidents throughout history, throughout relatively recent history anyway. And you can see Trump is doing better than he was in the first Trump administration. He's more or less at sort of like break even in terms of favorability, in terms of approval rather, which is, you know, for him is actually pretty good. He is lower though than where other presidents are, which, you know, speaks to he is the quintessential divisive figure. I mean, he really has been the dividing line in terms of American politics. And, you know, you guys won't be surprised that I feel there's a lot of peril for him in the Republican Party. I think you're already seeing huge backlash at these Republican town halls. There was a report today, Senator Tom Cotton was like, you know, these tax cuts for the rich are not really all that popular and we better figure out some messaging around this because this is going kind of sideways. You have the NRCC, like the head of the Republican Congressional Campaign Committee, saying, let's just not do town halls because this isn't going all that well for us. So they're already starting to pick up on signs that this is going sideways for them in their communities across the country. And that's kind of, Emily, I think the landscape that Trump steps into here with this State of the Union.
Yeah, they're very conscious that they need to. I mean, the Tom Cotton story in Punch Bowl about how Republicans need to change their messaging amidst the tariff chaos and amidst all of this economic uncertainty to actually communicate with the working class. This is what Punch Bowl reported, at least, that Tom Cotton was...
Well, he said the policy is correct, but we need to communicate it differently.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like the Democrats, we've got a messaging problem. It's like, well, you got one of those, but you also got some reality problems.
I don't think there's any way out of a massive sink on the tax bill, especially how it went last. They did everything that they could last time around. I mean, at this point, maybe they'll do the no tax on tips thing. I was looking at it. Ryan, you'll know more about this, but wasn't there some meeting today where they said the best they could probably get to was $400 billion in cuts? And apparently, I mean, they want 1.5. Remember that it's effectively what the Ways and Means Committee is like. It's impossible without touching Social Security and Medicare.
And if you're increasing defense spending,
which they want,
they have to do
$100 billion.
Their weapons guys are not going to vote for it if they don't. Then
Joe Aaron's man is going to be very upset.
That's
a deep cut.
If you haven't read the ProPublica story on Joni Ernst and her mans, go ahead and do that. But actually, Phil Wegman from RCP pointed out this interesting line from the excerpt that we were reading from earlier. This is on tariffs. It gets to exactly what we were just talking about. Trump is prepared to say, whatever they tariff us, we tariff them. Whatever they tax us, we tax them. If they do non-monetary tariffs to keep us out of their market, then we do non-monetary barriers to keep them out of our market. We will take in trillions of dollars and create jobs like we have never seen before, which is one way to put it. It's very Trumpian, of course.
Well, apparently Trump is also going to say, Joe Biden let the price of eggs get out of control, and we are working hard to get it back down.
Oh,
is he going to say that Joe Biden did a chicken genocide again? Because that is one of his best lines.
That is
the problem is that Joe Biden didn't do like chicken genocides early enough, in my opinion. He did.
But then we would have had higher egg prices.
But they needed to stop this. Actually, the problem was more in the dairy, in the cattle, but whatever. We can put that aside for another
2 weeks to stop the spread.
2 weeks to stop. They needed to crack down early on and make it so that the cattle were not being taken across state lines. They didn't do that because they also were, in bed with the dairy industry. What's his name? The Ag Secretary, Phil Sack. It used to be like a dairy industry lobbyist, so they didn't do what they needed to do. So you can partly blame Joe Biden. However, here we are now, more than a month into the Trump administration.
This sounds like he's doubling.
Continue to.
Do you guys have any insight into this Trump walking back the firing of all the federal workers?
What do you mean?
Like,
I didn't see
memo that went out today. They're saying actually don't fire anybody and actually go hire a bunch of people back.
Based on a court decision?
Yeah, based on a court decision. And saying like tell the agencies that they have until September 13th.
I didn't see that.
To reorganize. HuffPost has it at the top. It's a new directive saying, don't fire anybody else. You might have to hire back a bunch of people. And don't immediately do these firings that we were demanding because they're not legal. And just organize it. And we're not going to fire based on probationary status. Like a complete
That's a 180.
reorganization.
It's hard to say, though, because there have been other things like, supposedly PEPFAR funding was restored. But it wasn't. Supposedly Ebola
are they
prevention
just saying
funding.
this so that it becomes legal? Right. I don't know.
Exactly. It could be one of those where it's like, well, we didn't actually fire them. The individual agencies just decided on their own that all the probationary employees should be fired because that's some of the legal games that they've been trying to play.
It's related to that case.
To justify, the mass firing coming from the Office of Personnel Management, because the judge was like, you can at the OPM, you can fire your own employees, but you can't fire employees at every other agency around the government. So they were trying to argue like, oh well, it wasn't really us, it was those individual agencies. So it could be something to do with that, like their legal posturing
so
to try
would have to walk it
justify
back?
it.
So the DOD would have to fire them, or like DOE or any of these
National
other
Science
places?
Foundation is apparently rehiring a bunch of people.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well,
We'll see.
There's some legal stuff going on.
We'll see.
I have not been able to check that one.
But I mean, if they're complying with court orders,
that's interesting.
That is interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, sure. Do we want to play the polling? The Harry Hinton slot?
Yeah. What is that?
We have C6.
C6, guys. Let's roll that.
And we're going to look at presidents at this point in their presidency, right? And the word here that I would use to describe Trump is awful. In fact, the only person who does worse than Trump does right now with a +1 net approval rating is himself back in 2017 when he was at -8. So he's doing better than he was.
I was going to say, you could spin it another way. He's making gains.
He's making gains, but he's doing worse than everybody else. The average president at this point, get this, plus 27 points on their net approval rating. Donald Trump is doing historically awful. The only person he beats is, again, himself from term number 1.
How about on the issue that, one, he says he was most elected to fix, and he said he would do it on day one, which would be the economy.
On the economy, well, he beat himself on overall, but on the economy, he can't even beat himself. Again, this is historically the worst going back in polling at this point in a presidency, the net approval rating on the economy. He's right now at -4 points. In term number 1, he was at +8 points. Historically, the average is +15 points. He is doing nearly 20 points worse than the average president when it comes to the economy on net approval rating. He is historically doing awful, awful, awful. Weak. And on the issue on which he was elected to, of course, fix, he is doing historically awful. This is not good. If this number holds, you can guarantee his overall approval rating will go down, and it could take his entire presidency with him.
And this also now can change very quickly because of tariffs. I mean, you have a lot of mixed reaction coming in from especially amongst Republicans on what these tariffs are really going to mean. I mean, can these tariffs help the president?
I don't think they're going to help the president, at least in the near term. And the reason why is simply put, look at the opposition. Americans oppose tariffs on Canada. Look at this. You got nearly 2/3 of the country opposing it on Canada, 64%. How about on Mexico? Nearly 3/5 of the country at 59%. We're already dealing with a president who, what we're having is the economy bringing him down. These tariffs, in my mind, will only bring him down further. Again, historically awful on the economy at this point, and the tariffs, I think, will only lead to further deterioration, Kate Baldwin.
If prices go up, that is not the direction that Americans elected him to push them.
Americans don't like the idea of prices going up. That leads to approval ratings going down.
And Harry Anton getting exercise on live.
All right, so there you go. Guys, can we go ahead and put the video up on the screen? We'll talk over it just so everybody knows. We're waiting for President Trump to enter the House chamber. It looks like the vice president is there already sitting behind the dais with the speaker. And we have, I just
Ryan
saw...
needs to start fixing his hair like that, dude.
Oh, okay.
Pull that
Is
off,
that
Ryan.
what would you
okay.
call
Do that.
it? A middle part?
It's a
Give me 10 years.
giving pompadour vibes, I would
All
say.
right, yeah. Who else have we got there in the House chamber? Lots of milling about. Krystal says Elon is apparently in the building.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Nancy Mace has blown him a
Blew him a
kiss.
kiss.
So, okay.
That's sweet.
All right. Number 15 seems to be ready to go, I guess, with Nancy Mace. And
Number 15 that we know of.
yeah, that's right. That we know of that aren't being currently fought in Texas custody battle courts of $2,000 a month payments. Very graceful behavior there.
Something to keep an eye on here is pink outfits.
Yeah, so I actually already saw them. I'm waiting for the camera to pan.
Okay.
So with C-SPAN, I have it up in front of me, but it panned to a bunch of Democratic women who are all clad there in all pink, which we're waiting for. Okay, so we're gonna get a little shot
There we go.
here.
You can see it
Seeing
in
a
the
little
middle.
pink there.
Yep.
Seeing some pink.
Seeing
Yep, there,
some
right in the
real
middle
pink.
there.
Okay.
So Congressman Maxwell Frost, who famously said communist Russia the other day, just wanted to make sure we put that out there.
Is it a bad thing?
Huh? Well, no, yeah.
No, he was
yes, he said
describing it.
You
still
didn't see
currently.
this?
He
You would've
said
loved this.
Trump did not stand up to communist Russia in the
Max
Oval
Frost is an
Office.
old leftist. How can he slur?
He should
Yeah,
know
so-
that.
I
He hates Lenin.
I was so
Nobody hates
disappointed
Lenin.
with that one, too.
They're not sending their best.
Oh, here we go. Look at Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
So we got
Marjorie Taylor
Marjorie's
Greene.
on the floor. We'll wonder if her boyfriend will show up as well. The camera. What's that guy's
Brian
name?
Glenn.
Brian.
Real America's Voice.
The guy who asked Zelensky why he's not wearing a suit in the Oval Office.
Your best friend.
I mean, I liked it, but
Wait,
I would ask him.
Wait. Back up. I don't know this connection.
Wait,
Is this
oh
her
my
boyfriend?
God. Yeah, that's her boyfriend.
The one that asked
yeah.
this
Yes.
question
Marjorie Taylor
is
Greene's
MTG?
boyfriend.
Yes,
Yes,
the
absolutely.
reporter,
No idea.
Brian Glenn.
Absolutely.
And then she
I had
tweeted.
no idea.
Absolutely.
She tweeted after, she's like, great question from Brian Glenn. I mean, listen, we like
my
to see people
God.
standing up for their significant others.
We like to see
It's
love.
a good thing. Yeah, it's
We
a love.
like to
It's a
see
love
love.
story.
Yeah.
It's a great American love story. Yeah, all right, we got some pink. We got
So-
Nancy. That's more purple.
Here's-
Crystal, you judge for me.
I'd say it's pink enough.
I would say a
it's
magenta.
pink enough.
Oh,
One of the
she has the
things-
cane.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm a little curious
boy.
about is whether the ratings, like compared to other State of the Unions, whether the ratings will be up or down, because I can kind of see it either way. Like, on the one hand, I could see a sentiment of like, oh my God, this guy again, like I got enough of him in my daily life. I'm going to watch something else. On the other hand, he did create a lot of anticipation around, okay, what the hell is going to happen with the tariffs? What the hell is going to happen with Ukraine? He also said that he's going to like tell it like it is. And so what does that mean? And what is it? So I could kind of see it going either way in terms of the ratings, and he'll be paying close attention.
Oh, I think you're right. So okay, there we got the first lady walking in. Always you should pay attention to who the guests are in the first lady's box. Those are usually like the guests of honor. I know that we have some of the list, but they said there will be multiple surprise guests.
Here, let me read. I can read some of the guests that we know about here. We've got a Michigan auto worker who was laid off, then brought back to work when Stellantis reversed layoffs. We've got a steel worker from Alabama, volunteer firefighter, foster parent, volunteer for natural disasters, including Hurricane Helene. Mark Fogel, history teacher from Pennsylvania, recently released from a Russian prison. Family members of Corey Comparatori, the fire chief who was killed during that assassination attempt on Trump at the rally in Butler, PA, and the widow of slain NYPD officer Jonathan Diller. Those were some of the ones that we knew in advance. I know the Democrats were really focused on bringing a bunch of like fired government workers with them. We had Senator Tina Smith, who announced she was bringing a fired park ranger named Kate, who was fired from northern Minnesota's Voyageurs National Park. She's one I had seen her story online previously, so that was kind of their focus. You can see Marco Rubio coming in and some of the other cabinet officials. Is that Scott Bessent? Is that what Bessent looks like? Pete Hegseth behind him.
Do you think he'll talk about how he's cracking down on speech at colleges?
Oh,
Maybe.
yeah, that tweet. We should cover that tomorrow, Ryan. Yeah, make sure we do that.
It's outrageous. I mean, listen, it's not surprising, but for the people that claimed, we're running on free speech, they sure moved to criminalize speech really quickly.
A significant chunk of this movement was animated by like hostility to cancel culture. And
that's right.
Michael Tracy had a good tweet where he was like, so MAGA's free speech policy is like, you can say retarded again, but you can't criticize Israel.
That literally actually is the policy.
I mean, that's the balance.
And there's RFK Jr., who is leveraging the resources of HHS to participate in this crackdown on, pro-Palestine speech, what he describes as quote-unquote anti-Semitism. So I'm sure that's what everybody wanted when RFK Jr. got put in as HHS secretary.
It's just like
for him to use health resources to launch some anti-free speech attack on the First Amendment.
I know. I saw it being described as like the most peak woke thing. It's like, remember when Buttigieg, what did he say? He was like, there's racism built into our roadways.
Well, I mean, actually,
like that.
There is.
That's
okay, Mr.
Here we go.
All right, guy read The Power Broker and he's about to go off on us. All right,
We're supposed to act like we don't know anything.
There
is a history of racism and it's intertwined with urban planning.
Correct. Christy Noam there, not wearing a flak jacket. I guess she feels safe enough here.
The designated survivor. I have that in front of me.
Yes,
is
the
Doug Collins, the VA
Secretary
secretary tonight, is the designated survivor.
There's Russ Vogt.
We got Tulsi Gabbard.
Who is that? Brooke Rollins?
Brooke Rollins.
Oh, Brooke Rollins.
USDA. Mark Kelly there is in a conversation with, who is he talking to? I can't tell. Oh, with Howard Lutnick. That's
Chip
who it is.
Roy giving
Howard
Brooke Rollins a hug.
Howard Lutnick is the Commerce Secretary. So people who don't know, this is how big losers many of these members of Congress are. They will camp out for hours there on the aisles just to be seen by the constituents, so that you can be seen shaking hands with your idol. So famously, Sheila Jackson Lee used to do that with Obama. She said it was one of the most recognized she would ever be in her district. Many MAGA congressmen, actually Chip Roy, it makes sense he's on the aisle because he needs to run for re-election and Trump is against him. So he needs to be seen there trying to shake hands with Trump, grab that visual and run on it for the rest of his term. But yeah, there's a reason that many of the folks on those aisle seats are there, and it's specifically to get some photo opportunities. Great view into Washington.
I want to make another RFK Jr. point, which is that while he's doing his thing in HHS with anti-Semitism or whatever, the person that they just put in charge of food safety, in charge of like 80% of food safety over at the FDA, is a former lawyer for Abbott Labs.
Awesome.
The formula maker that
Wait,
you guys remember.
The PCR testers?
No,
Yeah.
they're well, maybe they make that too. But these are remember when we covered the formula shortage? The big
Yes,
formula,
yeah, Abbott,
they're the
yes.
ones that had the factory that they had to shut down because it was so
All the poison in
disgusting,
the
and it was
formula,
like poisoning, allegedly, poisoning infants. And then he was a lawyer for them when apparently their formula for preemies did not disclose that it can cause some like catastrophic bowel disease that led to horrific health consequences for these preemies. He was unsuccessful, by the way, in defending them. But anyway, that's the guy that's in charge of food safety now. So congratulations, everybody. Hashtag Baja.
I feel very in safe hands there. You know? Well, actually,
But
what
the
I would
market will
want-
solve it, right?
Huh? The market will solve it. That's right. Some will die and some will live. The people who can
The
afford it.
babies who like drank the Abbott formula.
They're going to
and die,
educate themselves.
Like what won't buy the
That's
other
right.
kind.
The parents will
Yeah.
learn. The parents will
next
learn
baby.
their lesson for the next time. I remember Abbott from
right.
those.
Of course, it's a monopoly, so
They're
you
the
don't
only one,
really
yeah.
have any other choices.
It is actually crazy. The baby formula. Remember we covered that at the time about
Yes.
how you can't even buy European baby formula, which is apparently like 10 times better than American formula.
Yes.
They could literally keep it out. There were rich people who were flying European baby formula over to the United States to get around the ban. But of course, everybody else is just not being able to buy it at Target or Costco or whatever. All right, who else? Have we got anything else going on? So it's currently 9:09 p.m. right now on the East Coast. Emily's sources. You want to tell us about the length? About what you were told?
Listen, I think it's
You
going
gotta
to be
warn
a long
everybody.
one. I think it's going to be a long one. Based on what I've
That's what we're
heard,
told.
and maybe not long for Trump, but long in general. That's the sense
What
that
is
I
the
got.
Do we know what the average is?
It's usually an hour.
Really?
yeah.
But I think Saagar mentioned that Trump's first State of the Union was 90 minutes long.
Yeah, because I attended it and I was gonna die. I was like,
here
when
you are.
I was attending a profession. I'm like, when will this shit ever end?
ChatGPT says typically between 60 and 90 minutes. Bill Clinton holds the record at an hour and 28
would.
minutes. Yeah, he would
he
for
would.
sure. He predicted.
Trump is an entertaining guy, but yeah, he can
Not
he
in
can go
State
a
of the
little
Union
long on
format,
State of the
though,
Union.
really.
Yeah.
So here's something
Exactly, yeah.
interesting.
I actually think State of the Union is his worst format. Whenever he has to be
course.
hyper serious, that's always
And just
like,
off the
whenever it doesn't work.
teleprompter, very little riffing,
We don't have a full Supreme Court in the House.
Really?
Justices Thomas, Alito, Sotomayor, Gorsuch, and Jackson did not show up for the speech.
Huh.
Now, Justice Kennedy, retired, did come with, it looks like, John Roberts, Elena Kagan, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. So
That is interesting.
that's surprising.
They usually come.
It's genuinely
What do they
surprising.
know?
Yeah, right. That's 5 people, right?
They maybe just, I mean, they get
also
uncomfortable with like the
stressed.
political displays and stuff.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Also, they're all old and sick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's be
That
honest.
too. Yeah, I mean.
It's late for me. I can't even imagine
Like,
79 years old.
It really is.
Yeah. Like I don't even want to be here.
After 7:30.
All right, what else did we got here? Oh man, they always make us wait. Is that Tulsi? I think I see
I
Tulsi
did see
there.
Tulsi.
Is D&I technically part of the cabinet? Do we know that? I always
That's a
forget.
good question.
I mean, she had to get
Yeah.
Senate confirmed, but I guess that doesn't
But there's a lot
necessarily
of, like
mean-
sub-cabinet
yeah.
people get
Do you
Senate
think
confirmed.
that he will talk about getting a ceasefire in Gaza and then
No.
where
If I were him, I
because-
would
because
just
it's such
blow
a
right
mess
past
now?
that. Yeah.
You don't think
And
he'll
then,
say
yeah.
anything about it?
I don't know. Do you,
I mean, owning Gaza is literally the least popular thing he's proposed since he's been president, according to the polling. So
I don't know.
wouldn't bring it up.
Pardoning the J6 people was pretty damn unpopular too. I don't
had-
think that will come up either.
What was Gaza at? It was like 16, right? I think it was literally like 16%. Like it was the worst thing that I think we've covered yet here on the show in terms of his proposal. So let's just all move past that and the video with the bearded women that were in Gaza and the AI-generated Trump Tower. So that's a disaster. I don't think he'll mention it because didn't you guys cover this that they've already cut off all the aid going into Gaza, and they're preparing to
Cutting off
to go
electricity,
in,
the
like,
sanitation
immediately.
is
Right,
shut
so
down.
The war is probably going to restart there in the next 48, 72 hours, something like that.
What do you think, Ryan?
well, or they'll just draw out the suffering in this kind of a miserable
Like
way.
a siege way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other interesting thing that producer Mac notes is Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh are there as guests of Speaker Mike Johnson.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, what do you say about that?
Are they getting Epstein Files
Yeah.
Part 2?
Yeah,
They
right.
walk out with a binder. Oh my God, check it out.
I don't know what's going on.
That
something else.
whole situation was so insane.
Well, yeah, and when Pam Bondi was walking in, it was interesting as well, just because the scuttlebutt against her is pretty negative.
right.
And
How
now
so? Like,
She
what
looks
is
like
the
an idiot.
scuttlebutt?
the White House is knifing her via
Wait, who?
Yashar Ali, Pam
Yeah.
Bondi. They have a new story out that actually comports with what we were talking about on Friday, which is that the White House is blaming Bondi. The White House said that Bondi intended it to be a fun surprise.
For
that
the
she
White
thought it
House.
would be a good
Yeah.
surprise, so she did not tell them.
It's also just sick, like, oh, these sex trafficking
Yes.
information, isn't that just a fun
It's
photo
disgusting.
shoot for,
Yep.
like, that is so grotesque.
Plus the Rickroll thing, that
Exactly.
is actually what really set me.
And that was House
because I was
Judiciary,
like,
or House
listen,
Oversight.
I was like, you're making
What are you
light
doing? Yeah.
of sex trafficking children? Like, this was serious. This is supposed to be serious. Oh, and then did you guys see today the report came out that Pam Bondi said that some national security information will be redacted
Yes.
from Epstein?
She
It's like,
said it
that's
on
the whole
Hannity.
point. The whole point is the national security
Yep.
information.
Yeah.
But,
She said
that
it on Hannity.
might piss off somebody who
Well,
we were just talking about earlier.
Yeah, and that's exactly. It's like, oh, really? National security
Yeah.
information with regard to Jeffrey Epstein? Tell me more. But
would
of
that
course,
be?
that's the part that you would never get. I mean, listen, we've got,
here we
I
go.
think, Trump
All right,
coming
Trump's
in.
walking in.
But yeah, I mean, listen, Trump was friends with Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein claims they were besties. So Trump routinely was like very uncomfortable when asked about releasing Epstein information. And then you also have the national security implications that I don't think, they're likely to be too excited about revealing to the public either. So no one should be surprised when the Epstein file disclosures are less than what one might want. So here you have Trump walking in. You can see the Lauren Boebert there.
And a Republican who accidentally wore pink, looking like
No.
the
Oh,
Democrats.
Where?
So that is,
Who is that?
she's from Texas.
okay.
Actually, she's from Iowa. I think.
That's funny.
Yeah. Remember what I said, guys? These
I've been-
are the people. These are the people who lined up there for hours just to get this shot.
People do this
so
at
that their
fish shows.
constituents. There's Marjorie in her
What do
MAGA
you mean
hat.
they do it at fish shows?
At fish shows, they're called rail riders. You
okay.
you show up very early as soon as the gates open, and then you run right to the rail, and then you just are front row the entire time.
Gotcha.
But it's the
Just
same
hang
thing.
on.
They don't charge any extra. It's just you have to put in the hours.
The
Marjorie
effort.
needs to
Okay,
take
that's
her
very
MAGA
like
hat off.
democratic in a way.
Yeah.
It's in violation of House rules. You cannot wear a hat on the floor of
Oh
the
my
House of
God,
Representatives.
Yeah, that was Mary Miller.
I'm serious. It's ridiculous.
It is. It's outrageous.
Yeah,
Saagar's
it's
right.
outrageous.
Accidental pink.
No
was Mary
bare
Miller,
arms,
by the way.
no hats.
We're
all
so
right?
far beyond that.
It matters. It
Wait,
matters.
it was changed for Ilhan Omar.
I agree with the hats.
For who?
Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, but that's religious. That's not the same thing.
Well, that's
Oh.
that's
That's
everybody.
also
Yeah,
True.
walked
True.
around.
I guess you're right.
True.
There you go. All right, what else we got here? Yeah, let's show the president
guys-
something on our phone.
Did you guys see the Florida Attorney General announcing an
Nancy
investigation
Mace.
into
I
the
did,
Tate
to
brothers?
Tate brothers. Saw that today.
Nancy Mace just got a nice hug from Donald Trump.
Oh, I saw him tweeting angrily. I wasn't sure why.
That's
That's
why.
why.
All right, good to know.
There
Yeah.
you go, DeSantis.
And now Candace is actually attacking.
Will that complicate his bid for Florida Senate?
Who?
Andrew Tate.
Oh, Tate's gonna run? I guess he could. He's a U.S. citizen. So. All right, what else?
I saw Hanania tweeting it'd be funny if MAGA got him like freed from Romania, only for him to end up in a prison in
Now,
Florida.
honestly, it looks possible. I mean, it's serious. It's serious. I mean, we're making light of it. It's
4D
actually like
chess.
it's serious business.
4D chess.
Yeah.
Right.
But is DeSantis kind of like separating? I mean, is this
Yes.
part of DeSantis separating himself?
He's using the Tate stuff as a wedge, which is pretty interesting.
Well, because there's all that beef right now between his wife and Byron Donalds, right? Where he wants his wife to run for governor, and then Byron Donalds wants to run for governor. But Trump has endorsed Byron Donalds, and DeSantis attacked Byron Donalds. So there's a lot going on down in Florida.
It's like Days of Our Lives.
yeah.
But what do you think is the play for like is he gonna really break with Trump? Like, what do you think the play is? Because I mean, he should have probably learned the lesson that there's not really room in the Republican Party for truly breaking with Trump.
He should have probably learned the lesson. But then at some point, Donald Trump is no longer president, and I think Ron DeSantis sees that he can build up goodwill with social conservatives who were always unhappy with the direction that the Trump coalition would sometimes push in, like with Andrew Tate and others. I mean, there's a bunch of different examples. And so I think he realizes that if he can plant the seeds now, he can get a head start of other people who then try to own that lane after Trump is out of
Mike,
office.
he's going for the Mike Pence lane.
Yeah, the
He's
Mike
going-
Pence
he's going-
voter. See, Mike
Well,
Pence's
he's
super
trying to be
PAC is,
MAGA Mike Pence.
Do you see that right now?
What?
Mike Pence's fundraising off where he was like, when we were in power, the economy was great. And he's like, now all this tariff action is causing chaos or something. But he doesn't mention Trump by name. Like in a fundraising email for Mike Pence's super PAC. It was super weird.
For what? What's he just?
I don't even know. Yeah, I'm like, super PAC for what? All right,
so
we're
we
gonna
got
dip into this now.
Trump
guys.
stepping up to the podium
see you
here.
guys
So
afterwards.
acknowledging the vice president and Mike Johnson there, Speaker of the House, obviously. So
Where's the
we'll
speech?
go ahead and,
Traditionally, he gives them right, each a copy of the speech.
oh, they may already. It looks like they're
supposed to.
maybe already have.
Because that's what Nancy did. She ripped it up.
Oh, there they go.
Yeah.
There it
You're
is.
supposed to deliver these.
White boy winter.
All right, let's go ahead and take this full, guys, and we'll see you on the other side for our sparkling analysis of whatever it is we are all about to watch unfold. So enjoy the President of the United States here.
Speaker Johnson, Vice President Vance, the First Lady of the United States, members of the United States Congress, thank you very much. And to my fellow citizens, America is back. 6 weeks ago, I stood beneath the dome of this Capitol and proclaimed the dawn of the golden age of America. From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country. We have accomplished more in 43 days than most administrations accomplished in 4 years or 8 years, and we are just getting started. Thank you. I return to this chamber tonight to report that America's momentum is back, our spirit is back, our pride is back, our confidence is back, and the American dream is surging bigger and better than ever before. The American dream is unstoppable, and our country is on the verge of a comeback, the likes of which the world has never witnessed and perhaps will never witness again. There's never been anything like it. The presidential election of November 5th was a mandate like has not been seen in many decades. We won all 7 swing states, giving us an electoral college victory of 312 votes. We won the popular vote by big numbers and won counties in our country. And won counties in our country, 2,700 to 525, on a map that reads almost completely red for Republican. Now, for the first time in modern history, more Americans believe that our country is headed in the right direction than the wrong direction. In fact, it's an astonishing record, 27-point swing, the most ever. Likewise, small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded.
Mr. President.
A 41-point jump.
Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House and to cease any further disruptions. That's your warning. Members are engaging in willful and continuing breach of decorum, and the chair is prepared to direct the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order to the joint session. Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber. Members are directed to uphold and maintain decorum in the House. Mr. President, you continue.
Thank you. Over the past 6 weeks, I have signed nearly 100 executive orders and taken more than 400 executive actions, a record, to restore common sense, safety, optimism, and wealth all across our wonderful land. The people elected me to do the job, and I'm doing it. In fact, it has been stated by many that the first month of our presidency, it's our presidency, is the most successful in the history of our nation. By many. And what makes it even more impressive is that Do you know who number 2 is? George Washington. How about that? How about that? I don't know about that list, but we'll take it. Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border, and I deployed the U.S. military and Border Patrol to repel the invasion of our country. And what a job they've done. As a result, illegal border crossings last month were by far the lowest ever recorded, ever. They heard my words and they chose not to come. Much easier that way. In comparison, under Joe Biden, the worst president in American history, there were hundreds of thousands of illegal crossings a month, and virtually all of them, including murderers, drug dealers, gang members, and people from mental institutions and insane asylums, were released into our country. Who would want to do that? This is my 5th such speech to Congress. And once again, I look at the Democrats in front of me, and I realize there is absolutely nothing I can say to make them happy or to make them stand or smile or applaud. Nothing I can do. I could find a cure to the most devastating disease, a disease that would wipe out entire nations, or announce the answers to the greatest economy in history, or the stoppage of crime to the lowest levels ever recorded. And these people sitting right here will not clap, will not stand, and certainly will not cheer for these astronomical achievements. They won't do it, no matter what. Five times I've been up here. It's very sad, and it just shouldn't be this way. So Democrats sitting before me, for just this one night, why not join us in celebrating so many incredible wins for America? For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again. Every day, my administration is fighting to deliver the change America needs to bring a future that America deserves, and we're doing it. This is a time for big dreams and bold action. Upon taking office, I imposed an immediate freeze on all federal hiring, a freeze on all new federal regulations, and a freeze on all foreign aid. I terminated the ridiculous Green New Scam. I withdrew from the unfair Paris Climate Accord, which was costing us trillions of dollars that other countries were not paying. I withdrew from the corrupt World Health Organization. And I also withdrew from the anti-American UN Human Rights Council. We ended all of Biden's environmental restrictions that were making our country far less safe and totally unaffordable. And importantly, we ended the last administration's insane electric vehicle mandate, saving our auto workers and companies from economic destruction. To unshackle our economy, I have directed that for every one new regulation, 10 old regulations must be eliminated. just like I did in my very successful first term. And in that first term, we set records on ending unnecessary rules and regulations like no other president had done before. We ordered all federal workers to return to the office. They will either show up for work in person or be removed from their job. And we have ended weaponized government where, as an example, a sitting president is allowed to viciously prosecute his political opponent, like me. How did that work out? Not too good. Not too good. And I have stopped all government censorship and brought back free speech in America. It's back. And 2 days ago, I signed an order making English the official language of the United States of America. I renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And likewise, I renamed, for a great president, William McKinley, Mount McKinley again. Beautiful Alaska. We love Alaska. We've ended the tyranny of so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion policies all across the entire federal government and, indeed, the private sector and our military. And our country will be woke no longer. We believe that whether you are a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer, or an air traffic controller, you should be hired and promoted based on skill and competence, not race or gender. Very important. You should be hired based on merit. And the Supreme Court, in a brave and very powerful decision, has allowed us to do so. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have removed the poison of critical race theory from our public schools, and I signed an order making it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. I also signed an executive order to ban men from playing in women's sports. Three years ago, Peyton McNabb was an all-star high school athlete, one of the best, preparing for a future in college sports. But when her girls' volleyball match was invaded by a male, he smashed the ball so hard in Peyton's face, causing traumatic brain injury, partially paralyzing her right side, and ending her athletic career. It was a shot like she's never seen before. She's never seen anything like it. Peyton is here tonight in the gallery, and Peyton, from now on, schools will kick the men off the girls' team, or they will lose all federal funding. And if you really want to see numbers, just take a look at what happened in the women's boxing, weightlifting, track and field, swimming, or cycling, where a male recently finished a long-distance race 5 hours and 14 minutes ahead of a woman for a new record by 5 hours. Broke the record by 5 hours. It's demeaning for women, and it's very bad for our country. We're not going to put up with it any longer. What I have just described is only a small fraction of the common sense revolution that is now, because of us, sweeping the entire world. Common sense has become a common theme, and we will never go back. Never. Never going to let that happen. Among my very highest priorities is to rescue our economy and get dramatic and immediate relief to working families. As you know, we inherited from the last administration an economic catastrophe and an inflation nightmare. Their policies drove up energy prices, pushed up grocery costs, and drove the necessities of life out of reach for millions and millions of Americans. They've never had anything like it. We suffered the worst inflation in 48 years, but perhaps even in the history of our country. They're not sure. As president, I'm fighting every day to reverse this damage and make America affordable again. Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control, and we're working hard to get it back down. Secretary, do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job. A major focus of our fight to defeat inflation is rapidly reducing the cost of energy. The previous administration cut the number of new oil and gas leases by 95%, slowed pipeline construction to a halt, and closed more than 100 power plants. We are opening up many of those power plants right now. And frankly, we have never seen anything like it. That's why on my first day in office, I declared a national energy emergency. As you've heard me say many times, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any nation on earth, and by far. And now I fully authorize the most talented team ever assembled to go and get it. It's called Drill, Baby, Drill. My administration is also working on a gigantic natural gas pipeline in Alaska, among the largest in the world, where Japan, South Korea, and other nations want to be our partner with investments of trillions of dollars each. There's never been anything like that one. It will be truly spectacular. It's all set to go. The permitting is gotten. And later this week, I will also take historic action to dramatically expand production of critical minerals and rare earths here in the USA. To further combat inflation, we will not only be reducing the cost of energy, but will be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars. And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, GOGE. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight. Thank you, Elon. He's working very hard. He didn't need this. He didn't need this. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Everybody here, even this side, appreciates it, I believe. They just don't want to admit that. Just listen to some of the appalling waste we have already identified. $22 billion from HHS to provide free housing and cars for illegal aliens. $45 million for diversity, equity, and inclusion scholarships in Burma. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows what that is. $8 million to promote LGBTQI+ in the African nation of Lesotho, which nobody has ever heard of. $60 million for indigenous peoples and Afro-Colombian empowerment in Central America. $60 million. $8 million for making mice transgender. This is real. $32 million for a left-wing propaganda operation in Moldova. $10 million for male circumcision in Mozambique. $20 million for the Arab Sesame Street in the Middle East. It's a program. $20 million for a program. $1.9 billion to recently created Decarbonization of Homes Committee, headed up, and we know she's involved. Just at the last moment, the money was passed over by a woman named Stacey Abrams. Have you ever heard of her? A $3.5 million consulting contract for lavish fish monitoring. $1.5 million for voter confidence in Liberia. $14 million for social cohesion in Mali. $59 million for illegal alien hotel rooms in New York City. He's a real estate developer. He's done very well. $250,000 to increase vegan local climate action innovation in Zambia. $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. Asia's doing very well with learning. I don't know what we're doing. Should use it ourselves. And $101 million for DEI contracts at the Department of Education, the most ever paid, nothing even like it. Under the Trump administration, all of these scams, and they're far worse, but I didn't think it was appropriate to talk about them. They're so bad. Many more have been found out and exposed and swiftly terminated by a group of very intelligent, mostly young people, headed up by Elon, and we appreciate it. We found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraud. And we've taken back the money and reduced our debt to fight inflation and other things. Taken back a lot of that money. We got it just in time. This is just the beginning. The Government Accountability Office, a federal government office, has estimated annual fraud of over $500 billion in our nation, and we are working very hard to stop it. We're going to. We're also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program for our seniors, and that our seniors and people that we love rely on. Believe it or not, government databases list 4.7 million Social Security members from people aged 100 to 109 years old. It lists 3.6 million people from ages 110 to 119. I don't know any of them. I know some people that are rather elderly, but not quite that elderly. 3.47 million people from ages 120 to 129. 3.9 million people from ages 130 to 139. 3.5 million people from ages 140 to 149. And money is being paid to many of them, and we're searching right now. In fact, Pam, good luck. Good luck. You're going to find it. But a lot of money is paid out to people because it just keeps getting paid, and nobody does, and it really hurts Social Security and hurts our country. 1.3 million people from ages 150 to 159, and over 130,000 people, according to the Social Security databases, are age over 160 years old. We have a healthier country than I thought, Bobby. Including, to finish, 1,039 people between the ages of 220 and 229, one person between the age of 240 and 249, and one person is listed at 360 years of age. More than 100 years older than our country. But we're going to find out where that money's going, and it's not going to be pretty. By slashing all of the fraud, waste, and theft we can find, we will defeat inflation, bring down mortgage rates, lower car payments and grocery prices, protect our seniors, and put more money in the pockets of American families. And today, interest rates took a beautiful drop, big, beautiful drop. It's about time. And in the near future, I want to do what has not been done in 24 years, balance the federal budget. We're going to balance it. With that goal in mind, we have developed in great detail what we are calling the Gold Card, which goes on sale very, very soon. For $5 million, we will allow the most successful job-creating people from all over the world to buy a path to U.S. citizenship. It's like the green card, but better and more sophisticated. And these people will have to pay tax in our country. They won't have to pay tax from where they came. The money that they've made, you wouldn't want to do that, but they have to pay tax, create jobs. They'll also be taking people out of colleges and paying for them so that we can keep them in our country instead of having them being forced out. Number one, at the top school, as an example, being forced out and not being allowed to stay and create tremendous numbers of jobs and great success for a company out there. So while we take out the criminals, killers, traffickers, and child predators who are allowed to enter our country under the open border policy of these people, the Democrats, the Biden administration, the open border insane policies that you've allowed to destroy our country, We will now bring in brilliant, hardworking, job-creating people. They're going to pay a lot of money, and we're going to reduce our debt with that money. Americans have given us a mandate for bold and profound change. For nearly 100 years, the federal bureaucracy has grown until it has crushed our freedoms, ballooned our deficits, and held back America's potential in every possible way. The nation founded by pioneers and risk-takers now drowns under millions and millions of pages of regulations and debt. Approvals that should take 10 days to get instead take 10 years, 15 years, and even 20 years before you're rejected. Meanwhile, we have hundreds of thousands of federal workers who have not been showing up to work. My administration will reclaim power from this unaccountable bureaucracy, and we will restore true democracy to America again. And any federal bureaucrat who resists this change will be removed from office immediately. Because we are draining the swamp. It's very simple. And the days of rule by unelected bureaucrats are over. And the next phase of our plan to deliver the greatest economy in history is for this Congress to pass tax cuts for everybody. They're in there. They're waiting for you to vote. And I'm sure that the people on my right, I don't mean the Republican right, but my right here, I'm sure you're going to vote for those tax cuts, because otherwise I don't believe the people will ever vote you into office. So I'm doing you a big favor by telling you that. But I know this group is going to be voting for the tax. Thank you. It's a very, very big part of our plan. We had tremendous success in our first term with it. A very big part of our plan. We're seeking permanent income tax cuts all across the board. And to get urgently needed relief to Americans hit especially hard by inflation, I'm calling for no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our great seniors. Good luck. And I also want to make interest payments on car loans tax deductible, but only if the car is made in America. And by the way, we're going to have growth in the auto industry like nobody's ever seen. Plants are opening up all over the place. Deals are being made. Never seen. That's a combination of the election win and tariffs. It's a beautiful word, isn't it? That, along with our other policies, will allow our auto industry to absolutely boom. It's going to boom. Spoke to the majors today, all three, the top people, and they're so excited. In fact, already numerous car companies have announced that they will be building massive automobile plants in America, with Honda just announcing a new plant in Indiana, one of the largest anywhere in the world. And this has taken place since our great victory on November 5th, a date which will hopefully go down as one of the most important in the history of our country. In addition, as part of our tax cuts, we want to cut taxes on domestic production and all manufacturing. And just as we did before, we will provide 100% expensing. It will be retroactive to January 20th, 2025. And it was one of the main reasons why our tax cuts were so successful in our first term, giving us the most successful economy in the history of our country, first term. We had a great first term. If you don't make your product in America, however, under the Trump administration, you will pay a tariff, and in some cases, a rather large one. Other countries have used tariffs against us for decades, and now it's our turn to start using them against those other countries. On average, the European Union, China, Brazil, India, Mexico, and Canada, have you heard of them? And countless other nations charge us tremendously higher tariffs than we charge them. It's very unfair. India charges us auto tariffs higher than 100%. China's average tariff on our products is twice what we charge them. And South Korea's average tariff is 4 times higher. Think of that, 4 times higher. And we give so much help militarily and in so many other ways to South Korea, but that's what happens. This is happening by friend and foe. This system is not fair to the United States and never was, and so on April 2nd, I wanted to make it April 1st, but I didn't want to be accused of April Fool's Day. That's not, just one day cost us a lot of money. But we're going to do it in April. I'm a very superstitious person. April 2nd, reciprocal tariffs kick in. And whatever they tariff us, other countries, we will tariff them. That's reciprocal, back and forth. Whatever they tax us, we will tax them. If they do non-monetary tariffs to keep us out of their market, then we will do non-monetary barriers to keep them out of our market. There's a lot of that, too. They don't even allow us in their market. We will take in trillions and trillions of dollars and create jobs like we have never seen before. I did it with China, and I did it with others, and the Biden administration couldn't do anything about it because there was so much money they couldn't do anything about it. We have been ripped off for decades by nearly every country on earth, and we will not let that happen any longer. Much has been said over the last 3 months about Mexico and Canada, but we have very large deficits with both of them. But even more importantly, they've allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before, killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens and many very young, beautiful people, destroying families. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They are, in effect, receiving subsidies of hundreds of billions of dollars. We pay subsidies to Canada and to Mexico of hundreds of billions of dollars, and the United States will not be doing that any longer. We're not going to do it any longer. Thanks to our America First policies we're putting into place, we have had $1.7 trillion of new investment in America in just the past few weeks. The combination of the election and our economic policies that people of SoftBank, one of the most brilliant anywhere in the world, announced a $200 billion investment. OpenAI and Oracle, Larry Ellison, announced $500 billion investment, which they wouldn't have done if Kamala had won. Apple announced $500 billion investment. Tim Cook called me. He said, I cannot spend it fast enough. It's going to be much higher than that, I believe. They'll be building their plants here instead of in China. And just yesterday, Taiwan Semiconductor, the biggest in the world, most powerful in the world, has a tremendous amount, 97% of the market. announced a $165 billion investment to build the most powerful chips on Earth right here in the USA. And we're not giving them any money. Your CHIPS Act is a horrible, horrible thing. We give hundreds of billions of dollars, and it doesn't mean a thing. They take our money and they don't spend it. All that meant to them, we're giving them no money. All that was important to them was they didn't want to pay the tariffs, so they came and they're building, and many other companies are coming. We don't have to give them money. We just want to protect our businesses and our people. And they will come because they won't have to pay tariffs if they build in America. So it's very amazing. You should get rid of the CHIP Act, and whatever's left over, Mr. Speaker, you should use it to reduce debt or any other reason you want to. Our new trade policy will also be great for the American farmer. I love the farmer. Who will now be selling into our home market, the USA, because nobody is going to be able to compete with you. Because those goods that come in from other countries and companies, they're really in a bad position in so many different ways. They're uninspected. They may be very dirty and disgusting, and they come in and they pour in, and they hurt our American farmers. The tariffs will go on agricultural product coming into America, and our farmers, starting on April 2nd, it may be a little bit of an adjustment period. We had that before when I made the deal with China, $50 billion of purchases, and I said, just bear with me, and they did. They did. Probably have to bear with me again, and this will be even better. That was great. The problem with it was that Biden didn't enforce it. He didn't enforce it. $50 billion of purchases, and we were doing great, but Biden did not enforce it, and it hurt our farmers. But our farmers are going to have a field day right now. So to our farmers, have a lot of fun. I love you too. I love you too. It's all going to happen. And I have also imposed a 25% tariff on foreign aluminum, copper, lumber, and steel, because if we don't have, as an example, steel and lots of other things, we don't have a military, and frankly, we just won't have a country very long. Here today is a proud American steelworker, fantastic person from Decatur, Alabama, Jeff Denard. Has been working at the same steel plant for 27 years in a job that has allowed him to serve as the captain of his local volunteer fire department, raised 7 children with his beautiful wife, Nicole, and over the years provide a loving home for more than 40 foster children. So great, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. Stories like Jeff's remind us that tariffs are not just about protecting American jobs. They're about protecting the soul of our country. Tariffs are about making America rich again and making America great again, and it's happening, and it will happen rather quickly. There'll be a little disturbance, but we're okay with that. It won't be much. No, you're not. Oh. And look where Biden took us, very low, the lowest we've ever been. Jeff, I want to thank you very much, and I also want to recognize another person who has devoted herself to foster care community. She works so hard on it. A very loving person, our magnificent First Lady of the United States. Melania's work has yielded incredible results, helping prepare our nation's future leaders as they enter the workforce. Our First Lady is joined by two impressive young women, very impressive. Haley Ferguson, who benefited from the First Lady's Fostering the Future initiative and is poised to complete her education and become a teacher. And Elliston Berry, who became a victim of an illicit deepfake image produced by a peer. With Elliston's help, the Senate just passed the Take It Down Act, and this is so important. Thank you very much, John. John Thune, thank you. Stand up, John. Thank you, John. Thank you all very much. Thank you. And thank you to John Thune and the Senate. Great job. To criminalize the publication of such images online is terrible, terrible thing. And once it passes the House, I look forward to signing that bill into law. Thank you. And I'm going to use that bill for myself, too, if you don't mind. Because nobody gets treated worse than I do online. Nobody. That's great. Thank you very much to the Senate. Thank you. But if we truly care about protecting Americans' children, no step is more crucial than securing America's borders. Over the past 4 years, 21 million people poured into the United States. Many of them were murderers, human traffickers, gang members, and other criminals from the streets of dangerous cities all throughout the world. Because of Joe Biden's insane and very dangerous open border policies, they are now strongly embedded in our country, but we are getting them out and getting them out fast. And I want to thank Tom Homan and Krystal. I want to thank you and Paul of Border Patrol. I want to thank you. What a job they've all done. Everybody, Border Patrol, ICE, law enforcement in general is incredible. We have to take care of our law enforcement. Have to. Last year, a brilliant 22-year-old nursing student named Laken Riley, the best in her class, admired by everybody, went out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia. That morning, Laken was viciously attacked, assaulted, beaten, brutalized, and horrifically murdered. Laken was stolen from us by a savage illegal alien gang member who was arrested while trespassing across Biden's open southern border and then set loose into the United States under the heartless policies of that failed administration. It was indeed a failed administration. He had then been arrested and released in a Democrat-run sanctuary city, a disaster, before ending the life of this beautiful young angel. With us this evening are Laken's beloved mother, Allison, and her sister, Lauren. Last year, I told Laken's grieving parents that we would ensure their daughter would not have died in vain. That's why the very first bill I signed into law as your 47th president mandates the detention of all dangerous criminal aliens who threaten public safety. It's a very strong, powerful act. It's called the Laken-Riley Act. So Allison and Lauren, America will never, ever forget our beautiful Laken Hope Riley. Thank you very much. Since taking office, my administration has launched the most sweeping border and immigration crackdown in American history, and we quickly achieved the lowest numbers of illegal border crossers ever recorded. Thank you. The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation, we must have legislation to secure the border. But it turned out that all we really needed was a new president. Thank you. Joe Biden didn't just open our borders, he flew illegal aliens over them to overwhelm our schools, hospitals, and communities throughout the country. Entire towns like Aurora, Colorado, and Springfield, Ohio, buckled under the weight of the migrant occupation and corruption like nobody's ever seen before. Beautiful towns destroyed. Now, just as I promised in my inaugural address, we are achieving the great liberation of America. But there still is much work to be done. Here tonight is a woman I have gotten to know, Alexis Nungari from Houston. Wonderful woman. Last June, Alexis's 12-year-old daughter, her precious Jocelyn, walked to a nearby convenience store. She was kidnapped, tied up, assaulted for 2 hours under a bridge, and horrifically murdered. Arrested and charged with this heinous crime are 2 illegal alien monsters from Venezuela, released into America by the last administration through their ridiculous open border. The death of this beautiful 12-year-old girl and the agony of her mother and family touched our entire nation greatly. Alexis, I promised that we would always remember your daughter, your magnificent daughter, and earlier tonight, I signed an order keeping my word to you. One thing I have learned about Jocelyn is that she loved animals so much. She loved nature. Across Galveston Bay, from where Jocelyn lived in Houston, you will find a magnificent national wildlife refuge, a pristine, peaceful, 34,000-acre sanctuary for all of God's creatures on the edge of the Gulf of America. Alexis, moments ago, I formally renamed that refuge in loving memory of your beautiful daughter, Jocelyn. So, Mr. Vice President, if you would, may I have the order? Thank you very much. All 3 savages charged with Jocelyn and Lakin's murders were members of the Venezuelan prison gang, the toughest gang, they say, in the world, known as Tren de Aragua. 2 weeks ago, I officially designated this gang, along with MS-13 and the bloodthirsty Mexican drug cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. They are now officially in the same category as ISIS, and that's not good for them. Countless thousands of these terrorists were welcomed into the U.S. by the Biden administration. But now every last one will be rounded up and forcibly removed from our country, or, if they're too dangerous, put in jails, standing trial in this country, because we don't want them to come back ever. With us this evening is a warrior on the front lines of that battle, Border Patrol Agent Roberto Ortiz. Great guy. In January, Roberto and another agent were patrolling by the Rio Grande near an area known as Cartel Island. Doesn't sound too nice to me. When heavily armed gunmen started shooting at them, Roberto saw that his partner was totally exposed, at great danger, and he leapt into action, returning fire and providing crucial seconds for his fellow agent to seek safety, just barely. I have some of the prints of that event, and it was not good. Agent Ortiz, we salute you for your great courage and for your line of fire that you took and for the bravery that you showed. We honor you, and we will always honor you. Thank you, Roberto, very much. Thank you, Roberto. And I actually got to know him on my many calls to the border. He's a great gentleman. The territory to the immediate south of our border is now dominated entirely by criminal cartels that murder, rape, torture, and exercise total control. They have total control over a whole nation, posing a grave threat to our national security. The cartels are waging war in America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels, which we are doing. Five nights ago, Mexican authorities, because of our tariff policies being imposed on them, think of this, handed over to us 29 of the biggest cartel leaders in their country. That has never happened before. They want to make us happy. First time ever. But we need Mexico and Canada to do much more than they've done, and they have to stop the fentanyl and drugs pouring into the USA. They're going to stop it. I have sent Congress a detailed funding request laying out exactly how we will eliminate these threats to protect our homeland and complete the largest deportation operation in American history, larger even than current record holder, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a moderate man, but someone who believed very strongly in borders. Americans expect Congress to send me this funding without delay so I can sign it into law. So, Mr. Speaker, John Thune, both of you, I hope you're going to be able to do that, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Leader, thank you. Thank you very much. And let's get it to me. I'll sign it so fast, you won't even believe it. And as we reclaim our sovereignty, we must also bring back law and order to our cities and towns. In recent years, our justice system has been turned upside down by radical left lunatics. Many jurisdictions virtually ceased enforcing the law against dangerous repeat offenders while weaponizing law enforcement against political opponents like me. My administration has acted swiftly and decisively to restore fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law, starting at the FBI and the DOJ. Pam, good luck. Cash, wherever you may be, good luck. Good luck. Pam Bond, good luck. So important. Going to do a great job. Cash, thank you. Thank you, Cash. They've already started very strong. They're going to do a fantastic job. You're going to be very proud of them. We're also once again giving our police officers the support, protection, and respect they so dearly deserve. They have to get it. They have such a hard, dangerous job, but we're going to make it less dangerous. The problem is the bad guys don't respect the law, but they're starting to respect it, and they soon will respect it. This also includes our great fire departments throughout the country. Our firemen and women are unbelievable people, and we'll never forget them. And besides that, they voted for me in record numbers, so I have no choice. One year ago this month, 31-year-old New York police officer Jonathan Diller, unbelievably wonderful person and a great officer, was gunned down at a traffic stop on Long Island. I went to his funeral. The vicious criminal charged with his murder had 21 prior arrests, and they were rough arrests, too. He was a real bad one. The thug in the seat next to him had 14 prior arrests and went by the name of Killer. He was Killer. He killed other people, they say, a lot of them. I attended Officer Diller's service, and when I met his wife and one-year-old son, Ryan, it was very inspirational, actually. His widow's name is Stephanie, and she is here tonight. Stephanie, thank you very much, Stephanie. Thank you very much. Stephanie, we're going to make sure that Ryan knows his dad was a true hero, New York's finest, and we're going to get these cold-blooded killers and repeat offenders off our streets, and we're going to do it fast. Got to stop it. They get out with 28 arrests. They push people into subway trains. They hit people over the head, back of the head with baseball bats. We got to get them out of here. I've already signed an executive order requiring a mandatory death penalty for anyone who murders a police officer. And tonight I'm asking Congress to pass that policy into permanent law. I'm also asking for a new crime bill getting tough on repeat offenders while enhancing protections for America's police officers so they can do their jobs without fear of their lives being totally destroyed. They don't want to be killed. We're not going to let them be killed. Joining us in the gallery tonight is a young man who truly loves our police. His name is DJ Daniel. He is 13 years old, and he has always dreamed of becoming a police officer. But in 2018, DJ was diagnosed with brain cancer. The doctors gave him 5 months at most to live. That was more than 6 years ago. Since that time, DJ and his dad have been on a quest to make his dream come true, and DJ has been sworn in as an honorary law enforcement officer, actually a number of times. The police love him, the police departments love him. And tonight, DJ, we're going to do you the biggest honor of them all. I am asking our new Secret Service Director, Sean Curran, to officially make you an agent of the United States Secret Service. Thank you, DJ. DJ's doctors believe his cancer likely came from a chemical he was exposed to when he was younger. Since 1975, rates of child cancer have increased by more than 40%. Reversing this trend is one of the top priorities for our new presidential commission to make America healthy again, chaired by our new Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. With the name Kennedy, you would have thought everybody over here would have been cheering. How quickly they forget. Our goal is to get toxins out of our environment, poisons out of our food supply, and keep our children healthy and strong. As an example, not long ago, and you can't even believe these numbers, 1 in 10,000 children had autism, 1 in 10,000. And now it's 1 in 36. There's something wrong, 1 in 36, think of that. So we're gonna find out what it is, and there's nobody better than Bobby and all of the people that are working with you. You have the best to figure out what is going on. Okay, Bobby, good luck. It's a very important job, thank you. Go get him. Thank you. My administration is also working to protect our children from toxic ideologies in our schools. A few years ago, January, Littlejohn and her husband discovered that their daughter's school had secretly socially transitioned their 13-year-old little girl. Teachers and administrators conspired to deceive January and her husband while encouraging her daughter to use a new name and pronouns. They, them pronoun, actually, all without telling January, who is here tonight and is now a courageous advocate against this form of child abuse. January, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Stories like this are why, shortly after taking office, I signed an executive order banning public schools from indoctrinating our children with transgender ideology. I also signed an order to cut off all taxpayer funding to any institution that engages in the sexual mutilation of our youth. And now I want Congress to pass a bill permanently banning and criminalizing sex changes on children and forever ending the lie that any child is trapped in the wrong body. This is a big lie. And our message to every child in America is that you are perfect exactly the way God made you. Because we're getting wokeness out of our schools and out of our military, and it's already out, and it's out of our society. We don't want it. Wokeness is trouble. Wokeness is bad. It's gone. It's gone. And we feel so much better for it, don't we? Don't we feel better? Our service members won't be activists and ideologues. They will be fighters and warriors. They will fight for our country. And Pete, congratulations. Secretary of Defense, congratulations. And he's not big into the woke movement, I can tell you. I know him well. I am pleased to report that in January, the U.S. Army had its single best recruiting month in 15 years, and that all armed services are having among the best recruiting results ever in the history of our services. What a difference. And you know, it was just a few months ago where the results were exactly the opposite. We couldn't recruit anywhere. We couldn't recruit. Now we're having the best results just about that we've ever had. What a tremendous turnaround. It's really a beautiful thing to see. People love our country again. It's very simple. They love our country, and they love being in our military again. So it's a great thing, and thank you very much. Great job. Thank you. We're joined tonight by a young man, Jason Hartley, who knows the weight of that call of duty. Jason's father, grandfather, and great-grandfather all wore the uniform. Jason tragically lost his dad, who was also a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy when he was just a boy, and now he wants to carry on the family legacy of service. Jason is a senior in high school, a six-letter varsity athlete, a really good athlete, they say, a brilliant student with a 4.46, that's good, GPA. And his greatest dream is to attend the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And Jason, that's a very big deal getting in. That's a hard one to get into. But I'm pleased to inform you that your application has been accepted. You will soon be joining the Corps of Cadets. Thank you. Jason, you're going to be on the long gray line, Jason. As Commander-in-Chief, my focus is on building the most powerful military of the future. As a first step, I'm asking Congress to fund a state-of-the-art Golden Dome missile defense shield to protect our homeland, all made in the USA. And Ronald Reagan wanted to do it long ago, but the technology just wasn't there, not even close. But now we have the technology. It's incredible, actually. And other places, they have it. Israel has it. Other places have it. And the United States should have it too, right, Tim, right? They should have it too. So I want to thank you. But it's a very, very important. This is a very dangerous world. We should have it. We want to be protected, and we're going to protect our citizens like never before. To boost our defense industrial base, we are also going to resurrect the American shipbuilding industry, including commercial shipbuilding and military shipbuilding. And for that purpose, I am announcing tonight that we will create a new Office of Shipbuilding in the White House and offer special tax incentives to bring this industry home to America where it belongs. We used to make so many ships. We don't make them anymore very much, but we're going to make them very fast, very soon. It will have a huge impact. To further enhance our national security, my administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it. Just today, a large American company announced they are buying both ports around the Panama Canal and lots of other things having to do with the Panama Canal and a couple of other canals. The Panama Canal was built by Americans for Americans, not for others, but others could use it. But it was built at tremendous cost of American blood and treasure. 38,000 workers died building the Panama Canal. They died of malaria. They died of snake bites and mosquitoes. Not a nice place to work. They paid them very highly to go there, knowing there was a 25% chance that they would die. The most expensive project also that was ever built in our country's history, if you bring it up to modern day costs. It was given away by the Carter administration for $1. But that agreement has been violated very severely. We didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. And we have Marco Rubio in charge. Good luck, Marco. Now, we know who to blame if anything goes wrong. Marco's been amazing, and he's going to do a great job. Think of it. He got 100 votes. You know, he was approved with actually 99, but the 100th was this gentleman, and I feel very certain. So let's assume he got 100 votes. And I'm either very, very happy about that, or I'm very concerned about it. But he's already proven. I mean, he's a great gentleman. He's respected by everybody, and we appreciate you voting for Marco. He's going to do a fantastic job. Thank you. Thank you. He's doing a great job. Great job. And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it. We will keep you safe. We will make you rich, and together we will take Greenland to heights like you have never thought possible before. It's a very small population, but very, very large piece of land and very, very important for military security. America is once again standing strong against the forces of radical Islamic terrorism. 3.5 years ago, ISIS terrorists killed 13 American service members and countless others in the Abbey Gate bombing during the disastrous and incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan. Not that they were withdrawing, it was the way they withdrew. Perhaps the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. Tonight, I am pleased to announce that we have just apprehended the top terrorist responsible for that atrocity, and he is right now on his way here to face the swift sword of American justice. And I want to thank especially the government of Pakistan for helping arrest this monster. This was a very momentous day for those 13 families who I actually got to know very well, most of them, whose children were murdered, and the many people that were so badly, over 42 people, so badly injured on that fateful day in Afghanistan. What a horrible day. Such incompetence was shown that when Putin saw what happened, I guess he said, wow, maybe this is my chance. That's how bad it was. Should have never happened. Grossly incompetent people. I spoke to many of the parents and loved ones, and they're all in our hearts tonight. Just spoke to them on the phone. We had a big call. Every one of them called, and everybody was on the line, and they did nothing but cry with happiness. They were very happy, as happy as you can be under those circumstances. Their child, brother, sister, son, daughter was killed for no reason whatsoever. In the Middle East, we're bringing back our hostages from Gaza. In my first term, we achieved one of the most groundbreaking peace agreements in generations, the Abraham Accords. And now we're going to build on that foundation to create a more peaceful and prosperous future for the entire region. A lot of things are happening in the Middle East. People have been talking about that so much lately with everything going on with Ukraine and Russia. But a lot of things are happening in the Middle East. It's a rough neighborhood, actually. I'm also working tirelessly to end the savage conflict in Ukraine. Millions of Ukrainians and Russians have been needlessly killed or wounded in this horrific and brutal conflict with no end in sight. The United States has sent hundreds of billions of dollars to support Ukraine's defense with no security, with no anything. Do you want to keep it going for another 5 years? Yeah, you would say Pocahontas says yes. $2,000 people are being killed every single week. More than that. They're Russian young people. They're Ukrainian young people. They're not Americans. But I want it to stop. Meanwhile, Europe has sadly spent more money buying Russian oil and gas than they have spent on defending Ukraine, by far. Think of that. They've spent more buying Russian oil and gas than they have defending. And we've spent perhaps $350 billion, like taking candy from a baby. That's what happened. And they've spent $100 billion. What a difference that is. And we have an ocean separating us, and they don't. But we're getting along very well with them, and lots of good things are happening. Biden has authorized more money in this fight than Europe has spent by billions and billions of dollars. It's hard to believe that they wouldn't have stopped it and said at some point, come on, let's equalize. You got to be equal to us. But that didn't happen. Earlier today, I received an important letter from President Zelensky of Ukraine. The letter reads, Ukraine is ready to come to the negotiating table as soon as possible to bring lasting peace closer. Nobody wants peace more than the Ukrainians, he said. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We do really value how much America has done to help Ukraine maintain its sovereignty and independence. Regarding the agreement on minerals and security, Ukraine is ready to sign it at any time that is convenient for you. I appreciate that he sent this letter, just got it a little while ago. Simultaneously, we've had serious discussions with Russia and have received strong signals that they are ready for peace. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful? Wouldn't that be beautiful? It's time to stop this madness. It's time to halt the killing. It's time to end this senseless war. If you want to end wars, you have to talk to both sides. Nearly 4 years ago, amid rising tensions, a history teacher named Mark Fogel was detained in Russia and sentenced to 14 years in a penal colony. Rough stuff. The previous administration barely lifted a finger to help him. They knew he was innocent, but they had no idea where to begin. But last summer, I promised his 95-year-old mother, Malphine, that we would bring her boy safely back home. After 22 days in office, I did just that, and they are here tonight. To Mark and his great mom, we are delighted to have you safe and sound and with us. As fate would have it, Mark Fogel was born in a small rural town in Butler, Pennsylvania. Have you heard of it? Where his mother has lived for the past 78 years. I just happened to go there last July 13th for a rally. That was not pleasant. And that is where I met his beautiful mom right before I walked onto that stage. And I told her I would not forget what she said about her son. And I never did I? Never forgot. Less than 10 minutes later, at that same rally, gunfire rang out, and a sick and deranged assassin unloaded 8 bullets from his sniper's perch into a crowd of many thousands of people. My life was saved by a fraction of an inch, but some were not so lucky. Corey Comparator was a firefighter, a veteran, a Christian, a husband, a devoted father, and above all, a protector. When the sound of gunshots pierced the air, it was a horrible sound. Corey knew instantly what it was and what to do. He threw himself on top of his wife and daughters and shielded them from the bullets with his own body. Corey was hit really hard. You know the story from there. He sacrificed his life to save theirs. 2 others, very fine people, were also seriously hit. But thankfully, with the help of 2 great country doctors, we thought they were gone and they were saved. So those doctors had great talent. We're joined by Corey's wife, Helen, who was his high school sweetheart, and their two beloved daughters, Allison and Kaylee. Thank you. To Helen, Allison, and Kaylee, Corey is looking down on his three beautiful ladies right now, and he is cheering you on. He loves you. He is cheering you on. Corey was taken from us much too soon, but his destiny was to leave us all with a shining example of the selfless devotion of a true American patriot. It was love like Corey's that built our country, and it's love like Corey's that is going to make our country more majestic than ever before. I believe that my life was saved that day in Butler for a very good reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. From the patriots of Lexington and Concord to the heroes of Gettysburg and Normandy, from the warriors who crossed the Delaware to the trailblazers who climbed the Rockies, and from the legends who soared at Kitty Hawk to the astronauts who touched the moon, Americans have always been the people who defied all odds, transcended all dangers, made the most extraordinary sacrifices, and did whatever it took to defend our children, our country, and our freedom. And as we have seen in this chamber tonight, that same strength, faith, love, and spirit is still alive and thriving in the hearts of the American people. Despite the best efforts of those who would try to censor us, silence us, break us, destroy us, Americans are today a proud, free, sovereign, and independent nation that will always be free, and we will fight for it till death. We will never let anything happen to our beloved country, because we are a country of doers, dreamers, fighters, and survivors. Our ancestors crossed a vast ocean, strode into the unknown wilderness, and carved their fortunes from the rock and soil of a perilous and very dangerous frontier. They chased our destiny across a boundless continent. They built the railroads, laid the highways, and graced the world with American marvels like the Empire State Building, the mighty Hoover Dam, and the towering Golden Gate Bridge. They lit the world with electricity, broke free of the force of gravity, fired up the engines of American industry, vanquished the communists, fascists, and Marxists all over the world, and gave us countless modern wonders sculptured out of iron, glass, and steel. We stand on the shoulders of these pioneers who won and built the modern age. These workers who poured their sweat into the skylines of our cities. These warriors who shed their blood on fields of battle and gave everything they had for our rights and for our freedom. Now it is our time to take up the righteous cause of American liberty. And it is our turn to take America's destiny into our own hands and begin the most thrilling days in the history of our country. This will be our greatest era. With God's help, over the next 4 years, we are going to lead this nation even higher, and we are going to forge the freest, most advanced, most dynamic, and most dominant civilization ever to exist on the face of this earth. We are going to create the highest quality of life, build the safest and wealthiest and healthiest and most vital communities anywhere in the world. We are going to conquer the vast frontiers of science, and we are going to lead humanity into space and plant the American flag on the planet Mars and even far beyond. And through it all, we are going to rediscover the unstoppable power of the American spirit. And we are going to renew unlimited promise of the American dream. Every single day, we will stand up and we will fight, fight, fight for the country our citizens believe in and for the country our people deserve. My fellow Americans, get ready for an incredible future because the golden age of America has only just begun. It will be like nothing that has ever been seen before. Thank you, God bless you, and God bless America.
Hello, everybody. We are officially done with the first joint address / State of the Union. According to our research, if it was a State of the Union, which can we all agree it is, it would be the longest State of the Union ever delivered by an American president, beating significantly President Clinton's record in the year 2000, which was 1 hour and 28 minutes. This one, by my rough back of the napkin math, is roughly around 1 hour and 43. And yeah, it was long. It was long.
Could have used an edit.
Could have
on
used,
that one, you know?
Could have used a few more. Kind of reminded. Remember? God, I'm trying to think of the first. One of the first ones we covered here, where Biden was just like literally a laundry list. I think we were all watching it.
It's very common.
It's very common. Yeah. I mean, let's not say that
they all have their like constituencies they got to
right.
check the box on, whatever. But yeah, it needed a good edit.
It was long. It was long. We're trying to cull some of the best takeaways for all of you. I would say the biggest one was no new policy announcement on Ukraine, but there were some significant domestic policy events that definitely bear registration. But the thing is that we should probably start with the Democratic protest by Congressman Al Green, who opened the remarks. There was some initial booing that was happening from the Democratic side. Congressman Green was standing for the duration of the first couple of minutes before he was kicked out. Anyone want to say anything before we play the stop?
Before we make people subject people to more clips from the very long speech that we just wanted, let's just get some top of the top of mind thoughts. I mean, to me, the big takeaways were the actually lack of new policy specifics with regard to tariffs in Ukraine in particular, where I think, that's certainly where we perked up and we're listening, like, is he going to say, are the tariffs on, are the tariffs off? Still don't know, which I think probably indicates that the signaling that they might be rolled back could be the case. Because he certainly wasn't touting the Canada and Mexico 25% across the board. He was focusing on, we did this with China, with steel. We're doing these reciprocal tariffs.
April 2nd.
April 2nd down the road. He mentioned Canada and Mexico, but he did not specifically tout the tariffs that just went into effect. Which, if I'm reading in between the lines, I feel like, okay, well, that's probably an indication that Lutnick was right. They are probably rolling back or diminish something. Ukraine, I kind of feel the same way. He talked about the letter that he got from Zelensky that we talked about earlier that is already public. He talked about the desire to make a deal and, moving forward. So I think probably the reporting about them continuing to work on this rare earth mineral deal is also probably accurate. I mean, it seems like based on what he's saying. But he did not confirm any of those pieces.
Yeah, it is actually kind of surprising that there was no new major initiative either on the tariffs, on Ukraine, especially because they were hyping that from news level. A lot of the speech was basically messaging. So I was clocking the time. So statistically, most people turn off around around 10 p.m. Just they watched the first like 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
The first 30 to 45 minutes of this was basically just a campaign speech. It was like, we won the election, historic landslide, mandate. That's where the Al Green protests and all of that happened. There was a lot of culture war stuff there during that time period. A lot of DEI, trans, CRT, basically all the greatest hits from Trump. We eventually then started to get to the economy, Doge, and Social Security, and we're going to play some of that for you. But any other thoughts? Why don't you guys give us your summary too before we play
I mean, at
some
least
of these clips?
on the tariffs front, at least he described why he was going to do them. Like with the Canada and Mexico ones, he's just been telling us they've been ripping us off, and we subsidize Canada, and that's ridiculous.
He was quite light on those, though. That was my thing.
He went back to the old school.
Those tariffs,
like, we're gonna if you don't have steel, you don't have a country.
Right.
We're gonna make steel.
Right.
And so we're gonna do these targeted tariffs on steel and like aluminum or like. So at least like there was some like ethos behind it.
Like a vision.
Like back to that's the thing about tariffs. You're trying to actually build up industry inside the country, rather than we've been suffering through this like fiction about these tariffs being fentanyl related.
I mean, he did mention the fentanyl there too, though.
Yeah, he did mention the fentanyl.
A minuscule amount comes from Canada.
So I can either agree with it or disagree with it.
Sorry, Ryan.
Not gonna get
Sorry,
it.
you're gonna live in the ambiguity for a while now.
Emily?
You know, I think we've spent almost a decade now always potentially anticipating, I don't mean we so much, I mean the media more broadly, some new version of Donald Trump. Like, he doesn't have to run for re-election now. He felt like he was coasting on these high approval ratings as his administration started. He's got Elon Musk by his side. And what he did was give a very, like, classic Trump, rambling, riffing, very partisan. Yeah. He ribbed Pocahontas in front of her face. Like Elizabeth Warren, he called her Pocahontas during the speech.
Yeah,
to
what
her
did she do?
face.
She must have done something.
Something about the war. Like
no, but did she
Ukraine.
hold something up? Like I'm saying, what was the impetus?
I saw her like scrolling on her phone at one point, but I didn't even see her like participating in the protests or whatever. But I mean, I don't know that she necessarily had to do it. He just has like animus, like he just whatever. It's
I thought
a
it
thing.
was funny.
I mean,
He doesn't change. Yeah. He doesn't change.
Yes and no. The style of the speech, yes, typical Trump, going through his greatest hits in terms of his grand election victory and, calling Democrats out to their face, like, you would never clap for me no matter what, putting them on blast
so
like
sad.
that.
It's so sad.
It's so sad.
It's
no matter
tragic.
how I did what I did, it wouldn't be enough for you people. And then, at the end, of course, he goes back to retell the story of the assassination attempt and how he was saved by God to save the country, which makes me very uncomfortable when people start putting themselves in those sort of messianic terms. But, again, classic Trump.
Ryan, stop that.
But, on the, on the economic policy front, as I'm just listening to the actual policies, I'm like, this is a freaking Paul Ryan speech. Like, we're talking about deregulation. We're talking about Social Security. We're talking about tax cuts. I mean, I was like, this is a Koch network policy agenda.
Yeah, but with 25% tariffs.
He did.
That, so
Yeah, but
it's a little different.
that got. I mean, but again, he's like. I mean, we're not even clear on what that is. But the piece that he front loaded with was all the just like standard, conventional Republican stuff that he ran so hard against and positioned himself so hard against back in 2015. Now we all know the record of the actual Trump administration the first time around, where their biggest accomplishment was a giant tax cut for the rich. But to me, that, combined with he was, trying to get applause lines on, we're going to get rid of the budget deficit, and then reading down the list of all the wasteful government programs.
The transgender mice.
The transgender mice, all of those things. Like, that's Fox. I used to do a lot of Fox News hits back in the, post to like 2011 time frame.
That was the sweet spot.
And yeah, it was every day. It was like, oh my God, they spent $10 per muffin at this conference, or
lobster dinners. They're always having lobster dinners.
It was all, and so I'm like, oh, this is such a throwback to the Paul Ryan talking points, just delivered through a Trump, Trumpian panache.
All that chaos, and all we get is like different lies about Social Security.
Correct.
Like, he's out there saying that like 160-year-olds are getting Social Security, and it's like
even Fox News actually debunked that talking point.
Okay, let's save that commentary. So, do you want to just do the Social Security thing now?
Yeah, let's go ahead and cue up Social Security. Let me see, what number is
5.
this? Number 5, guys, if you can cue this up, where he starts talking about Social Security, and he's reiterating the lies that Elon spread about the, people who are supposedly 300 years old or whatever and still getting Social Security. We know none of this is true, but doesn't matter. It's still in the president's speech. If we've got that, let's go ahead and roll it.
We're also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program for our seniors, and that our seniors and people that we love rely on. Believe it or not, government databases list 4.7 million Social Security members from people aged 100 to 109 years old.
Make no mistake, when you're setting up, and this is why it was significant that Trump brought it up, when you were bringing this up, you were creating a pretext to cut the program. And again, totally counter to the way Trump has always positioned himself. And he'll use these lies about alleged fraud to justify the cuts. And we already see, Doge is gutting the Social Security Administration. There's actually a warning from Martin O'Malley, who was previously Social Security Administrator, that the system cannot handle that level of cuts, and that people should start saving their money in anticipation that the program could face disruption just from not having enough staff. The hotline, people who answer the hotlines are being cut. The offices across the country are being cut. So to me, when the word Social Security came out of his mouth in the context of there's all this giant fraud, et cetera, that is a huge indication of the direction.
That was the most important political moment of the speech to me. I think I said that to you guys at the time. I was like, that is very important. Not only is it Donald Trump endorsing the Elon strategy around that, but he's taking ownership of what is very likely to be extremely unpopular. And this gets to the way that this will all happen. So it's very unlikely to see a top line across the board cut of Social Security, right? Passed by the Congress in the next tax bill. Even in terms of entitlement reform or whatever. But there may be at least elements to chip away at the program, or at the very least reduce its accessibility now currently. Regardless, you've got your hand basically right there on the rail of the most potent political weapon. I remember being with the four of you guys talking when Biden had that moment where he's like, okay, we are all agreeing we're not going to cut Social Security. So the problem that they have is even if they pursue no cuts, is that even tampering with the program is going to have tremendous blowback from a lot of people. But last thing on this, they may be able to get around it because they also said during the speech the no tax on Social Security, which we all won't know will be extremely popular with a lot of seniors. How much? I'm thinking if you're 100% reliant on Social Security, that's probably almost 10, 15, 25% of your income that's going back to tax. I've said before, I think it's crazy. Why does the government give you money if just to take it back? It actually is very inefficient. It doesn't make sense.
It's the Reagan compromise brought that in.
Which is what, to have income tax on Social Security?
Yeah, it didn't used to be taxed.
It makes no sense. It's why would you give you a lump sum of money and then take a portion of it back and expect you to file it and then we'll take it back 45 days later or whatever? It's ridiculous.
There's only one interesting thing other than everything that you guys have said that I noticed on this point is his line about Social Security as he started this conversation. There's a slightly new framing from the old Republican talking point. He says, quote, "We are also identifying shocking levels of incompetence and probable fraud in the Social Security program our seniors rely on."
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Republicans used to just demonize Social Security, and in this he's trying to frame it as saying, I'm saving our seniors from the fraud that is dragging down Social Security. To Ryan's point about you're just dressing up the same old talking points about Social Security in different language, that's basically the best example of it. He's saying, all of this Tea Party talking points, or all this Tea Party rhetoric, if you tweak it to say we're doing this to save the program.
Paul Ryan, too, was saying he was going to save Social Security by privatizing.
Yeah, but he was more explicit.
He
was like, we're going to raise the retirement age.
Yeah, but the idea is always, the way it's always framed is, oh my God, this program is that I care so much about is going bankrupt and we have to save it. That's the way it's always framed.
Program we've been trying to end since the 1930s. That
right,
that
we really love so much, but we're just really interested in the best interest of this program. That's what these cuts are all about. So, but it is a little bit of a twist on that, but it's not that far from the way that it was portrayed in the Paul Ryan era.
But it's not. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Overall, it did sound like 2012. Like, it really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
the way
at
it was
this
written.
point, anyone who's surprised by that, like, I don't know what to say. It was like we had a whole first term, didn't we? Like, where all of this went through. He said he won't touch Social Security or Medicare. He probably
And
won't
Medicaid.
at
He
the
said
top
Medicaid.
line in the way that Paul Ryan and all those other folks will. This chipping away and all of that, like, I'm not yet sure how far they're going to go or if they're really that stupid. Like, are you
Yeah,
really so
that's the
stupid
thing.
that you would actually axe, 75% of the SSA offices or privatize it or whatever? It's like, good luck. See how it happened to George W. Bush
in a project
in 2005.
A project led by 2 billionaires.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the optics of it would be insane,
Yeah.
especially if it happened at the very same time that you passed a massive tax cut and extension for the rich, which they are all on record. They're going to do it. Like, the only question is if they also include the no tax on tips. I will
Right.
say, I do think that the tips and Social Security thing could potentially, I wouldn't say it saved them, but make it more of a wash than the last time. 2017 was just so naked in terms of what the actual policy was. But the tips thing, I mean, we all know it's going to be very popular, and they're going to message the hell out of it. And same with the no tax on Social Security. I could see that being some sort of countervalence and all of that. But I mean, look, they're playing
There's
with fire.
also-
They're playing with the same fire they were playing with under Rick Scott. Like, it just never
Yeah.
ends. I don't know why they're addicted to it.
There's also no guarantees that those policies make it in. I mean, it's not spelled out in the Republican budget, and actually
Yeah, they don't want to do it.
the numbers as they exist, and what they have said that they're working with in terms of the amount that they've allocated for tax cuts would not be sufficient to include no tax on tips and no tax on. We know the $4 trillion tax cut, like that part is locked in. Right. The rest of it, and then you also have to throw in there the SALT tax situation.
Yeah, they got to go to 20%. That's
for them as well.
billions.
And that's expensive. So there's also just like no guarantee that any of that actually happens. And like I said, it was not actually in the Republican budget that passed the House that Trump had backed.
The ideal is we all just stop all this fakery on the debt and we just include all those things. It's like it actually put some of the good stuff in there at the very least. So we talked about Social Security. We should definitely talk about Doge as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got number 4, guys, if you could cue that up. So Elon got a huge shout out from Donald Trump. Donald Trump may have slipped up a little bit here, though, because in this acknowledgement, he not only acknowledges Elon, he actually says Elon is the head of Doge, which is the opposite of what his government is currently arguing in court. But nonetheless, it was important because
was Amy Gleason there to get
Amy
her
Gleason.
round of
No,
applause
she's in
as
South
well?
America. She's in South America.
She's the one they're claiming is in charge of
She's
Doge.
175 years old.
She's a 326-year-old woman in South America. So Elon got a shout out. This was important just for, I mean, look, like MAGA is now like equals Elon. And you really see this where Trump acknowledges him. He gets the entire Republican Party. The optics of this are wild, who are on the floor of the House of Representatives to look up and to clap at Elon as Elon stands. He did wear a suit though, so apparently the guy does owe one. Number 4, guys, let's take a listen.
And to that end, I have created the brand new Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. Perhaps you've heard of it. Perhaps. Which is headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight.
So there you go. Not only a huge Elon shout out, but then subsequently talking about there was a good, I would say, what do you guys think? Like 5-7 minute period of just listing Doge stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's where the transmice thing comes from. So that I thought was pretty important, just in terms of not only not backing away from Doge, openly endorsing it, making Elon a central part of the State of the Union, talking here about the Social Security. So on the economic front, this is the one where they don't yet seem to sense what they perceive any danger. I think the only sign of it maybe is on the egg price line that he did deliver. But that's
which
all
was
I really saw.
How he kind of opened the economic piece. But yeah, I was just trying to look back up the tweet, but Portnoy had tweeted something about like Trump had a line that was, we'll no longer be ruled by unelected bureaucrats. And Portnoy really was like, well, that's kind of a tough thing to make stick when Elon is out there running the entire government as co-president. So,
Portnoy said
that is ruled by unelected bureaucrats. Yeah.
You know why Dave's mad? It's because there's a crypto recession right now. And he's got shit coins that he still needs to sell to the
He's
people.
working through some things, but still interesting to see the Portnoy response there.
That's true.
I mean, listen, this is the most significant difference between Trump 2.0 and Trump 1.0 is Elon. And, you see it in the way that Trump has shifted his ideology. I mean, always some of his populist rhetoric and approach was fakery given the commitment to tax cuts for the rich. But the austerity framing, like spending all of these minutes going through these quote unquote wasteful programs, which they frame as fraud, and that always irritates me because it's really just like spending that you don't like. Ryan Grimm here is the one who has found the most fraud of anyone.
I did not get credit from the podium.
That was outrageous.
I gave you credit.
We're referring
I wanted it from Trump.
They're the ones that found the $400 million armored Tesla thing that actually was. It looks like they cooked the books to be like, we could slip this in and no one will notice. Wrong, Ryan Grimm will notice. So I think Jeremy Scahill called it the Department of Grimm efficiency.
That's pretty good. I like it.
Pretty well.
That's
I like
good.
that pretty well.
Department of Grimm efficiency. That's a Doge I could get behind. Absolutely.
He should have been like, and $400 million for armored Teslas?
Yeah.
Who needs an armored Tesla? Go over
Kenya.
a speed bump and lose an axle?
You could have just said electric vehicles.
Right. Yeah, that's
and then
right.
it would be like, very lib-coded.
Yeah, I
and
like that.
you get away with it.
All right, we have the egg price, guys. Number 3, can you cue that up? So this was an important line for Trump. It's kind of how it began the economic section. But it was an acknowledgement of being elected with a mandate on inflation and trying to address it. So let's go ahead and put it up there on the screen and play it for everyone, just to give everyone a taste.
Joe Biden especially let the price of eggs get out of control. The egg price is out of control, and we're working hard to get it back down. Secretary, do a good job on that. You inherited a total mess from the previous administration. Do a good job.
All right, so you could also see some of the Democrats that were leaving there with the resist T-shirts that were on.
I think that was Jasmine Crockett.
Yes, it was. Do we want to clown on some of the Democrats? What do you think?
Well,
There's lots of
let me clown on the egg thing.
Okay.
Well, it's just, hard to really make this case on a day when you announce 25% across the board tariffs with Canada and Mexico, and he has said that he does not really think that inflation is the reason that people voted for him, and that has certainly been reflective in the lack of any sort of an approach to dealing with inflation. And so to me, it was really noteworthy that this was kind of the first. He did a bunch of culture war stuff and a lot of patting himself on the back for his election victory and trying to own the libs and the Dems and whatever. And then the first economic piece he gets to is eggs. So it did indicate to me okay, the administration, whoever wrote this speech, and Trump himself feel like they've got a bit of a problem here. And the polls have reflected that if you ask people, do you feel like they are doing enough on prices? Pretty overwhelmingly, people are like, no, I do not feel like they're doing enough on prices. And that is one of the political challenges and warning signs for them. Also, as we played in that Harry Enton shot before we got into this, his economic numbers in terms of the approval of his handling of the economy are really low. And that's always been a strong suit for him. So I do feel like they were trying to play a little bit of cleanup on the egg prices thing, blame it on Biden, say, well, I promise we're working really hard on it, et cetera, and that was noteworthy to me.
Yeah, it could work for now. Like I said, you have a little bit of runway, but after 2-3 months, the runway's going to be over, especially if they feel all this Doge stuff. This is my greatest, I still can't get away from this. It's almost 50 days in to the Trump administration, almost halfway of the first 100 days, the most consequential part. And what? It's just been Doge, Elon. There's been almost nothing else. I haven't even seen deportation take Matt, like that was, I saw, I think it was Joe Weisenthal said that. He's like, the only thing that's really surprised me other than Doge is the fact that deportation has not taken such a center stage. Like they've had Tom Homan on, they've had a few like high profile
Well, Christie's been out there in
whatever.
her
Yeah,
flak jacket.
they're trying to, I was watching Fox News at home, not by choice because the whole Ukraine thing, I was trying to watch it live. And I got an ad from Kirsty Noem telling illegal immigrants to go home. I'm like, are they watching Fox News? I was like, what is this for?
There's some waste that they can cut. They spent like $200 million.
Yeah, I was shocked by it. I was like, this is like the most inefficient use of money. Like, these are a bunch of like 70-year-old white boomers who are watching this right now during daytime Fox as well. So anyway,
he did the Guantanamo things because it's a spectacle.
Yeah,
He
but it
couldn't
was
get
a
the numbers,
spectacle, right?
So he needs a spectacle.
But that's my point on
That's
that,
exactly
is that
right.
even with that, I mean, as far as I know, all of that, it hasn't been like a particularly large number. They haven't necessarily been prioritizing criminals as opposed to like just whoever they happen to round up. There's never been any like transparency around it. They haven't released the daily figures the way that they have. Instead, they're trying to make these flash like spectacle things like you guys are saying. But like empirically, I mean, you can just look at the number and you can say this is not impressive whatsoever. I mean, look, give credit where due, I guess, on the border crossings, but that's not the same thing. As opposed to kind of what was promised. So if you look at, on the inflation and the immigration point, where the two things I would say is probably the most responsible for getting him elected, you have not seen the vast majority of the energy getting focused on that.
Yeah.
He is hoping, and this speech really did crystallize a lot of like the Trump victory to me is, look, I mean, if you listen to the first 45 minutes of this, which statistically most people are watching, what was it? It was culture war all day long, right?
Gulf
he
of America.
believes it wasn't just that. I mean,
It was that
Yeah,
too.
it was that, but it was like trans. Yeah, it was the greatest hits, like of all the Republican culture war.
It was our country will be woke no longer.
There you go.
he
Our
said.
country will be woke
Also,
no longer.
free speech is back on a day that he, when they're announcing their
Most
crackdown
that
on.
requires people to actually read the news.
And the First
Interestingly,
Amendment.
he went on vaccines as well.
When?
Like this was a lot of culture war talking points. He was actually talking about how I can pull this up
The
here.
autism part?
Yeah.
Well,
he didn't say
he didn't
vaccines.
tie it directly
Yeah.
to vaccines.
Yeah.
But Bobby Kennedy's looking into
We're going to find
it.
out why, and Bobby Kennedy's going to figure
Bobby
it out.
Kennedy's looking into it.
Well,
He
maybe you should
said-
look into it.
He said, this is the quote. He said, we
That was
have.
at the end, though.
He said,
That was, not at the end, but that was much later on. But
right, but it's like the culture war thing. He said since 1975, rates of child cancer have increased more than 40%. Reversing this trend is one of the top priorities of our new presidential commission to make America healthy again, chaired by our new Secretary of HHS, RFK Jr. Our goal is to get toxins out of our environment, poisons out of our food supply, and keep our children healthy and strong. As an example, not long ago, 1 in 10,000 children had autism. Now it's 1 in 36.
So the first part of that makes me so irritated because, first of all, obviously they just cut a bunch of funding for research, including into, cancer. And in addition, they have spent the first period in office rolling back some of the restrictions on chemicals like PFAS. So, yeah. It's just so, I don't know, to me, it's just so cynical.
He ended that section of his speech by saying something is wrong and we're going to find out what it is. So
Something is wrong.
something is wrong.
Something's definitely
it's true.
wrong.
Yeah, it's
And I hope
very
find out
true.
what it is.
The
I also-
subtext of that is RFK Jr. is looking into the vaccines.
I don't know.
He has
I
ideas.
I mean, if you want it, if you want that, you could take that from it. But I don't know. I didn't see it
That's good
necessarily
signaling.
say.
That's good signaling. To the group.
I mean, he was obviously signaling it for the people who want to hear that, but it's also like on an empirical basis when people hear that, they're like, oh, that's
yeah,
crazy.
no, I agree with
I'm not against that, right?
But it's red meat. It's
I mean,
red
my
meat.
point around it all was I was like, he believes that cult is the most important reason why he won. To me, that's what. There's no other reason why you would start 45 minutes of your speech off this way. It's obvious. So he thinks that this alone is going to be enough to coast him. And by the way, I think he could be right. I mean, there's a huge, the whole MAGA universe online and all this, all the transgender, like the woman who's standing up who was hit by a woman by the volleyball thing,
situation.
like that.
Yeah.
That's what they live for, right? Like that's the reason Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh and all these people are in the audience.
But it's also to get a contrast with Democrats not applauding those lines.
Right,
Like it's
no,
very
no.
intentional.
I know, and that's like the big.
I think it's powerful with Peyton McNabb.
I read it a little different. You won't be surprised to hear. I mean, listen, it's the exact thing that Democrats do when they want to cover for their lack of an agenda that delivers for working class people. They fixate on identity and cultural issues.
Yes.
And it's the same shit. It's just from Trump. Because, you know, people aren't happy with how the economy is going. They feel that it's getting worse, and it already wasn't great. Obviously today the stock market fell off a cliff, and you've got, as we were saying before, the consumer sentiment, consumer spending down, and there's warnings in the manufacturing sector. You've got this warning from the Atlanta Fed. Like, people are not satisfied with that direction. And he really isn't offering anything in the near term that you can point to. I mean, maybe no tax on tips, maybe. But so instead, what do? You usher in an agenda that's been really good for people like Elon Musk and other oligarchs by saying, oh, this is about DEI, this is about woke, woke is over, don't you feel great? So that's how I read the reason why it was front-loaded with culture war, the same reason that, that Democrats who weren't delivering for working class people also would lean into culture war.
I'm not disagreeing with a word you're saying, but I mean, I do think it's still obviously very politically powerful, unfortunately. I mean, this is the hold that Trump has. Oh, yeah. Guys, please remind me on a future show, a listener of our show who works for the DOD, who voted for Trump, sent me a very long email about why he voted for Republicans, even though he works within the DOD. And his reasoning, it reminds me of all this, because it was for culture war reasons, specifically talking about
it was Pete
Doge. Whenever, if you will recall, I made that comment. I was like, anyone who voted for Trump and you work for the federal government, I was like, I don't really know what to tell you. I was like, you're kind of an idiot if you didn't think that something like this was going to happen to me. He sent me a very long justification for why he did it. I actually think it bears discussion with all of us, but that's a tease for the future.
Does he regret it, or now he's still like, yeah, I did the right thing?
No, he does not regret it. Okay. He's voted for Trump for 3 times. He voted for Trump because Democrats could not define what a woman is, but he is upset about the Doge cuts. And it in the logic of the email, it really hit home for me why I still think that this is very politically strong territory for Trump. Now, how long he can ride on it, I have no idea, right? Well, because America, they'll give you the runway, and this will keep people feeling as if things are very different. It's still, only a month or so into the new administration, but how long until it gets old? And that's when I think it starts to become a problem.
And this is what I don't think Republicans are doing this on purpose, but I do think one of the big lessons for Democrats should be that if you are asked to choose between Trump and Republicans' red meat culture warfare and Democrats, for many voters, Republicans still come out on top, even if they don't like the way that Donald Trump talks. Even
Sans
if they
abortion,
don't like,
100%.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so that's where I know we're going to talk about Al Green. We teased it a little bit earlier, and the resist T-shirt walkout, the paddle signs that looked like, as some people were joking, Fogo de Chao. Bring me my meat signs.
It's the green,
Yeah.
It was, and so again, for a lot of voters, the Democrats are so I get it. Trump went for an hour and 40 minutes, an extremely partisan speech, and said some wild stuff, and called the senator Pocahontas to her face. But then they look at the Democrats, they're like, you guys deserve it.
Well, let's have that combo. So let's start with the Al Green thing. What is that, number 1? So this was the first Democratic protest. I thought there were going to be a lot more, actually. I was surprised that there won't.
Got off to a raucous start.
Yeah, they got off to a very raucous start and then became extremely lame. So Al Green here being escorted out of the House chamber. He was literally shaking his cane at Donald Trump. Not since Charles Sumner, right?
Yeah.
Right, Ryan? Not since Charles Sumner has a cane so loudly been felt on the floor of the United States Congress. Let's take a listen.
Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
All right, so that was Al Green, congressman getting escorted out. He said he was shouting at him, you have no mandate to cut Medicaid. Let's also put number 2.
Oh, is that what he was saying?
Apparently, that's what he claims he was saying.
Yeah.
Apparently, people only heard you have no mandate. Let's go to the number 2, please. The screenshot. Can you guys put that up while I talk? This is the one that's going pretty viral when people are saying it's lame. Some of the, what are these, like placards? What would you call it? They're being held up. Signs.
Bingo signs.
Small round bingo-like signs being held up by Democrats include Musk steals. That's a lie. That's from Rashida Tlaib. She has a whiteboard. False, false. Musk steals. Save Medicaid. Musk steals. Some false. And that going.
They
around.
should have all said save Medicaid. Seriously.
Yeah, I
Every
agree.
single
I
one
was
of them
like,
should
save
have said
Medicaid
save
of that is
Medicaid.
probably the most powerful one. You, Krystal, sent this from The Daily Show. Fun fact, Democrats are wearing pink tonight as a symbolic protest against people who want them to do something meaningful. So that is that's pretty damn
They
funny.
were protesting me.
Yeah, they were wearing pink. They were
It's so personal.
I mean, clearly, like, they are getting the message that people want them to do more, but they just have no idea what that actually looks like. I will say, I thought Ro Khanna and Tim Walz had a really good idea, which is all these Republicans are like, oh, we're not going to do town halls anymore. And they're like, okay, we'll come to your district, we'll do a town hall.
Yeah, that is
Great
smart.
idea.
You know, that's smart, and I think will play really well and, you know, put pressure on Republicans like, oh shit, this guy's doing a town hall in my district. I guess I need to show up, or at least it's sort of shameful to them to not show up. Bernie Sanders, obviously, he's also, I think, delivering a response along with Alyssa Slotkin.
Yeah, she's speaking right
we're
now.
missing this.
She's speaking right now.
The
Yeah,
official
like,
deep state response.
I'm monitoring the quotes.
Yeah,
don't
the
worry.
deep state is responding
Yes.
via Alyssa Slotkin.
She currently
so
says
that's
Reagan
awesome.
is rolling in his grave.
Is she wearing pink?
Affirmatively talking about Reagan. Let's see what else here.
But I also think, you know, the Bernie Sanders oligarchy tour going to specifically swing Republican districts where, you know, the Republican House, they need every single vote to be able to do anything.
Yep.
And so he's recognized that as a pressure point. I think that's also very intelligent. But yeah, I mean, these things just read as like sort of lame and
The
pathetic.
only indication that Democrats would be getting the message would be if they'd have said, you know what, Bernie, you do the response.
Yes.
Because that would at least be surprising to people.
So instead,
Yeah.
they picked a CIA spook from Michigan,
Yeah.
who actually says, no guardrails on what they do. We need more efficient government. You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it, but change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe.
Yeah,
So
I mean, she
that's
also,
what
she's one of the ones that she's voted for a bunch of Trump picks.
Yeah.
She voted for the Lake and Riley Act. Like, you know, that's who she is. And it also speaks to, okay, not just would it indicate they're getting it from a sort of like policy perspective if they had Bernie Sanders respond, but people would actually watch.
Right, yeah.
Bernie is racking up
And it would go viral.
tens of millions of views on everything he does. I mean, he is an absolute TikTok sensation. And these town halls were getting insane views. Like everything he says does is going viral. So why wouldn't you be like, maybe that guy should be the one,
Or Roe.
You know, or Roe, or listen, the whole thing about giving the oversight ranking committee member to Jerry Connolly instead of AOC, like, what are you thinking? One of these people knows how to communicate and understands the attention economy and is on it and understands the online like attention ecosystem.
But the other one earned it, Krystal.
And the other one, he's been waiting for this.
Yeah.
You know,
He's in line. Follow the
Ryan.
rules.
It's just insane. It's just total insanity.
If the Dems get a Tea Party, how big was a Tea Party blowout in 2010? It was like
they
55
picked
seats?
up like 60 some seats.
It was like it was
62,
genuinely
I want to
historic.
say something.
If that
like
happened to the Dems, would that happen? Like the Jerry Connolly stuff still happen? Would Hakeem like get to keep his seat?
Oh, Hakeem is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bro.
That is the lamest guy I've ever seen.
If the Democrats, if they get a Republican-style Tea Party blowout win in the House of Representatives,
and Democrats
and
take
Democrats
control.
take control.
Oh, then
like, by-
definitely. I mean, Hakeem is the
So you
ball.
think he'll stay, even
Oh,
though
yeah.
they don't like him?
Oh, yeah.
I don't
He's
know.
in
It
line.
depends on.
Because remember, the Tea Party got rid of Boehner.
Yeah,
you know?
it depends on the kind
Yeah.
of characters who win, and it depends on if that Dem Tea Party also consists of not just winning in Republican seats, but primarying
Oh, that's a really
people
good
that
point.
they're disgusted
true.
with.
Oh, that's great.
And I've mentioned this before, but I went back and looked at the Tea Party era polling for Republican-based voters, how they felt about Republican congressional leaders, and it is very similar to the way that Democratic voters feel right now about Democratic leadership. Democratic leaders are underwater by like 9 points in the last poll that we saw. This is so different from 2016. You guys know Pelosi's shift. Like they felt, oh, these people are doing the thing we want them to do. These are our heroes, et cetera. It is not like that anymore. And so, you know, if you had some of these people who have been the most disappointing getting primaried, and you have a more sort of like forceful, radical group that comes in that doesn't owe their seats to the party establishment, then you could end up with some different dynamics. And I think the other thing that opens up that possibility is that liberals are also completely disenchanted with their media outlets. And so that creates a really different dynamic as well. So there's a lot of ifs here about how this will all go down. But I will say, I think the indications are very much in the direction of you're probably going to have a blowout year, blue wave year for Democrats. Just, you know, if you look at history and backlash to parties that have complete power, if you look at we're so early and there's already this level of sentiment and Republicans who are hiding and worried, and Elon is just doing his thing and they're going after Social Security and the economy is on the brink, I think you could be setting up quite a catastrophe for the Republicans in terms of the midterms.
I mean, it could phase out because the Tea Party peaked in what, 09, right around 9 months in. That's when the Obamacare stuff was really happened, and then it especially was right there at the tail of 09 into 10, and then going into the midterm elections.
Well, I guess I would say maybe. Honestly, I would put it through the Senate. What did Obama call it? The route or whatever he said in 2014.
Shellacking.
Yeah,
shellacking in 2014. Yeah. I would extend it through that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just thinking in terms of timing. So if the Democratic coffee party,
I see what you mean. Oh, okay.
If the coffee party peaks like 30 days in to the Trump administration, it could still, it could still it could still actually phase out, or who knows how public sentiment.
So much depends on what Trump's policies do to the economy, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Because he could back off. He could say, it's just kidding on these tariffs. Federal workers are allowed back in with a federal judge. And then he could say, we're going to fire them all in September. And then he doesn't actually fire them in September because things are struggling then, and you get a little downturn, and then it comes back up.
Right.
Or you could get this full-on Trump thing where he's like, no, we're really we're doing some major transition. Like in his speech tonight, he's alluding to real difficulties ahead.
Yeah, he said to the farmers, there'll be a little bit of adjustment.
But we're okay with that.
Which, Elon also promised like temporary hardship
he's trying
on
to
the
do,
campaign trail.
He's trying to do a thing that politicians have done many times over the generations, which bring people together in times of hardship so that we collectively can then get to a better place. Except he also wants to do it while dismissing, attacking, and calling the other half the country a bunch of traitors and losers. So FDR had, 60 plus seats in the Senate and 60, and one massive mandate, so he could say, all right,
we're all doing this together.
We're all doing this together. We're rowing together.
Right. And
it's just the bankers that are against us. Trump's like, we're all in this together, except like half the country, the universities, the doctors.
Every federal government worker.
Someone's got to stand up for the universities, Ryan.
All the teachers, the Capitol Police, but everyone else, we're in it. We're in it. I don't know how you do both of those things, because he wants to ask for shared sacrifice without sharing any common values.
Well, or sharing the sacrifice among people like Elon Musk, who are getting, just handout after handout.
Musk wants to be joyful about what he's doing to people rather than read people in and say, this is why we're doing it.
I think your point, though, about if they back off after a catastrophic 3 months, or not even catastrophic, bad 3 months, I mean, that's long enough time, that's almost, several months to go to the midterms. And so you could at least see some sort of change. The problem is that right now we have no indication that that's going to happen.
And he's going to get
Elon's getting his shout out at the State of the Union. Doge is getting, lists getting read off. You've got the Social Security fraud thing, and we're going whole hog on the tariffs. So it's like, okay, well, that's all we can really go off right now. Yeah, the tax cut. That's the thing. The tax cut is in a separate category. That's gonna happen. That's not changing at all.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
yeah. The other stuff might change,
you
but the
add
tax
on top
cut
of that,
is happening.
Likely Medicaid cuts, and
in the same way that Social
if they
Security
actually do flub some Social Security checks,
people will lose it. I agree with you. Yeah, and they should lose it. That's crazy.
They're flirting with that. I mean, they're flirting with that. They're flirting with another plane crash that really can be laid at their
I left
feet.
that out. You're exactly right, which is that if there's a major natural disaster, if there's a major hurricane, after they've been cutting all these NOAA things, and they can't properly call a Category 4 or a Category 5, and some people die, even if it's not their fault, doesn't matter. You're
or
they've
the gutted FEMA, and they can't properly respond
to anything
which,
like that.
Responding to a natural disaster, even with the best of government funding levels, is difficult. You've got a potential shutdown coming up. I mean, there's just disaster around every corner, and an economy that's already starting to turn south. So I think, it would take a lot at this point to recover from the trajectory that they've already set things on. And, to see Elon there, this is the part that I could not have predicted, is how much of the presidency he would cede to Elon. Like, I just could not have seen that coming.
Nobody would have.
And
it's the thing is it goes against everything that we know about Donald Trump.
Exactly.
Why would he ever cede? I still don't understand it. Why would you ever cede so much? Not control. What does Trump care about? Attention, media. Every probably American at this point who's even tangentially aware of the Trump news could tell you about Elon. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Why would you want that?
Yeah.
Why would you want your presidency to be defined by this guy with 15 kids and all this other baggage and weird shit that he does all the time?
Yeah, he's really tied his brand
literally
to one of the most eccentric and polarizing people in the world.
Right.
And he could actually be having Russ vote, like, out there doing Doge.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And it would not even be a headline. It would be done, first of all, it would be done properly. Second of all, it would be done, or at the very least, like, legally, or in terms of it would be much more within the line of like traditional Washington process, and they could fight it out in the institutions and the norms, like. And I mean, it seems to be that seems why Vivek ultimately left Doge, was really over a beef on something like this. His white people tweet aside, yeah, just putting it together. I mean, that's just the most shocking part about all of this, is like he is playing with fire, and I think that's a theme that I've really come away from this State of the Union. I think there was a ton of red meat. If you're MAGA, you'll love it. And of course you're going to love it. You're going to love anything the guy says. There's lots of culture war stuff and all of that. But, for us, like when we look at the dangers of natural disaster, Social Security, economic problems, and then just, chaotic nature, people feeling as if things are not in control. Those are all very, very dangerous places.
I also think that the amount of gutting of, like, white collar police that they've done is a risk, as well, like gutting the CFPB and gutting the SEC enforcement. I mean, you've just got, it's such like outright corrupt. You guys see this story about people paying $1 million or $5 million to have?
$5 million.
$5 million
to have a one-on-one dinner with Trump.
With Trump.
Yeah.
Like, just
that's another thing. He doesn't even need the money. It's for a campaign
not with the
fund.
meme coin.
No, but it's not personal.
That's right.
It's to a campaign fund. Why do you need $5 million for your campaign fund?
I mean, you've got that.
Yeah.
You've got the crypto dude who gave him, $75 million into his meme coin, and then SEC dropped enforcement.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so when you put all of these together, it's like, this is just like Elon and his billionaire buddies. Like, they're just robbing and plundering the government. I mean, the picture adds up. It doesn't take a genius political messenger. Even this lame-ass Democratic Party can put those pieces together to say, like, this administration is about the rich. And but to go back to the Trump and Elon point, like, even just to see the spotlight of his State of the Union address,
I know,
for a standing ovation to Elon. I don't think any of us could have anticipated that. And it really does ask some questions about, like, what the hell is going on here? Does he care? Is there some sort of a deal? What has made it so that he has just really ceded his previous ideological positioning to Elon and the most prominent, most public parts of his entire government administration to Elon?
Yeah.
And to your point about immigration, like, I'm glad he's not making good on those particular promises.
Yeah, but it'd be nice.
His
for some
deportation
of
levels
us.
are the same as Joe, but are actually lower than Joe
or
Biden.
This golden visa bullshit.
And that was the part that, in terms of one of the promises to working class people, again, this isn't accurate in my view, and I don't think that a mass deportation would help. I think that would further hurt the economy. But that was like the pledge to working class people, was that this is the thing that's really going to help you. And because it's not a priority of Elon, it's the part that's actually not really getting done. Again, I'm glad about that, but it is noteworthy to me that the part that has been so central to Trump, but is not really particularly a priority to Elon outside of him currying favor with MAGA, that part is kind of fallen by the wayside.
Right, on top of the golden visa thing, which is like a Silicon Valley wet dream where they get to just buy their citizenship.
Yeah, and H-1B, which he sided with Elon on.
Yeah, and he even mentioned that in this. He's actually trying to fuse golden visa with he's trying to fuse golden visa with the H-1B program. If you heard there, it's like at any of these universities, Facebook can pay $5 million for. It's like, yeah, Facebook can pay $5 million for a coder. Okay,
But the whole point
it's
is
like,
they
or
wanna
they'll
pay
just
less.
keep the H-1B
Right.
system.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
what? That's like that made you think meme. Anyway, all right, we've been talking for long enough. You guys got any last things you want to say?
Yeah, actually, all I was going to say is, Democrats were sitting there with their stupid paddle signs. And so, I mean, I don't disagree with everything that we've all said. I just think the big takeaway, to the extent that Americans pay attention to this, I think Donald Trump successfully baited Democrats into a complete public relations disaster for
Not
themselves.
a disaster. They like
Yeah.
It's
they're
they're not the center of the show here.
Outgreen
their
with the
voters want him to do
waving a
something.
cane.
I wouldn't say it's a disaster. I don't know. I think I disagree on that. I think,
Nicole Wallace is already saying that little kid DJ was like the highlight. Human Republicans, Democrats all find a good human story in every State of the Union. This was the one from that. He's already saying
Bush's spokesperson.
Nicole Wallace?
Yeah, Nicole
What did she
Wallace
say?
she's already out on the MSNBC airwaves saying, "I hope he has a long life as a law enforcement officer, but I hope he never has to defend the United States Capitol against Donald Trump supporters. And if he does, I hope he isn't one of the 6 who loses his life to suicide."
I don't know. I just, it's like, I don't disagree that it's cringe, but I wouldn't call it a relations
They're not
disaster.
I mean,
The
they're
memes are.
they're not the center of the evening.
Yeah, I think
like
that-
most.
that-
I mean,
that's-
that's,
that's
they're,
the main
they're a
reason.
sideshow.
I don't know. I think
have
it was
the
so
power to be
bad
a
that those.
disaster.
I
Like
think
they're
those.
not clapping.
I think those optics were so bad with them with the paddle signs. They were just like perfect meme fodder. I think that was so bad. That idea was
Maybe
so
you're right.
bad.
I don't know.
Al Green waving the
Yeah.
cane and the paddle signs. I think it was so bad that it will. A lot of people will see that.
I think you could be right. I see a lot of right wing like, oh, they didn't even clap for this and
That-
this. I'm
that
just
I'm
like,
not concerned
I'm like, are
about.
people really
That
watching these
doesn't-
clapping? Like,
No, they
I just
aren't.
don't think so.
No, they aren't.
Here's-
So,
here's-
and also it was a 100-minute speech. It's long.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like-
I don't think any of
How
that-
many people would watch
Here's
this?
one of the things
Yeah.
that I would point to, Emily, as I was looking at the some of the polling around this, and the approval rating of like Democrats and the Democratic Party and congressional Democrats is in the tank.
Yes.
And yet, when you ask people who do you prefer on a generic congressional ballot, Democrats.
What's the
Yeah,
Republicans,
doesn't
because-
surprise
how
me.
much?
The latest one was by 5, which is significant.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
a good
significant. I
number.
mean, listen, you take them with a grain of salt, whatever.
Right.
But you shouldn't look at the fact that their approval, like when people are like, "Do you like these people?" And they're like, "No," but do you like them better than these other people? They're like, "Yeah, kind of."
Yeah, I think it's a big deal.
because and that is a natural ebb and flow to politics, but also Republicans are truly enacting an agenda, and Trump in particular, that is really unpopular. I mean, the Greenland stuff is unpopular. Gaza is unpopular. Even the Gulf of America thing, which I thought people might eat up, even that's unpopular.
Yeah, it hasn't
right?
landed.
A lot of these pieces, and Doge is unpopular, and Elon's unpopular, and cutting Social Security, and cutting Medicaid, and giving taxes, like all of these things are really, really unpopular. And so when you put that together and it's like, hey, do you want maybe a check on that? Even if these people are kind of lame, they're like, yeah, probably. Not to mention, Democrats have the benefit now of the coalition that previously used to benefit Republicans in midterms, which is their people freaking show up.
Yeah,
now.
that's true.
And in the
That's
midterm
true.
election,
That's
that matters
true.
a lot. So that's why, listen, a lot can happen between now and then, blah, 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 caveats, et cetera. But I think we're probably headed in the direction of a major political
And if-
correction,
yeah.
even if the Democrats
And if
continue
Trump-
to be freaking lame.
If Trump does blow things up, then people will remember, oh yeah, they shook the cane at him. They didn't like.
They're like,
I
they're like, you know
caning
what?
of
They were
Trump.
right about with those paddles. They were right.
They were right.
They were vindicated.
I genuinely think that State of the Unions don't make a big difference. I should
They
have
don't,
have
yeah.
prefaced it with that anyway, in terms of like
That's
electoral
fair.
outcomes.
They
yeah.
don't.
Although,
Yeah.
again, I don't know why. People love the State of the Union. Like, people watch it. It's always the only political event in the top 100 newscast or
I don't know why either,
broadcast of
because
the
I
entire
find it
country.
Really, honestly, sorry,
Right, as-
it's boring.
No, yeah,
What are y'all
as
doing? What are you guys-
people like us who watch politics, like the debates are way more important. Stuff like that. Like
And
the
they're
debates
fun
are.
and they're spicy.
Oh, obviously they're fun. There's.
Even just a regular old Trump presser is like a lot
100%.
more,
Oh yeah, there's way more shit.
a lot more
that's
riz than
actually
that.
going to happen.
I think it's
But, all right. I mean, people like the show, so whatever.
aspiration for this being a country. right?
That's
What?
true. That's
It's aspiration
that's
for
the
like
way.
this being a real country. That,
Like this is a serious
We gather
thing. I need
around,
to tune
yeah.
in and hear what
You're right.
my
Ryan,
president
I should
has
take
to
my
say.
scolding away. Everyone should keep watching soon. If nonetheless, just because we always cover it.
Rituals are
it's
important,
a fun.
yeah.
It's a fun thing that we enjoy doing here. It's an annual tradition. Ryan and I will be doing a special show for everybody tomorrow that will be dropping somewhere around midday, and then Krystal and I will be back for a normal show on Thursday. So we will see you guys.
We're also going to have, by the way, Adam Hamaway very briefly.
Okay.
He was Bonnie Watson Coleman's guest at the State of the Union. She'll join as well. She's a Democrat from New Jersey. He's the doctor who saved Tammy Duckworth's life and was then stuck in Gaza twice. So he was in the audience.
Okay,
See what he thought about that.
Awesome. All right.
Not a lot.
He's on before you get on.
Okay.
Not a lot
Yeah.
on the Middle East. In
Looking
that
forward
speech.
to it.
Really?
Yeah, zero. Just the hostages.
There was
That's
he's
it.
tirelessly working.
Working
Yeah.
tirelessly.
Yeah, working tirelessly.
Working
on it,
tirelessly.
so we'll see.
Working tirelessly. We need to retire that one from
Yeah.
Washington.
Thought we-
All right. We'll
Indeed.
see you guys later.